As many of you know, I'm a fan of personal finance. Yes, we all love money, of course, but what I mean is I like the art, the science, the philosophy behind saving and investing and everything else. But before you can get into all of that, you've got to start small and get yourself responsibly established. And the best way to start getting your financial life in order is with a bank account. Thing is, if you're working with a lower income or have a lot of bills drawing money out of your account regularly, you may not be the right customer for a traditional bank that's going to establish account minimums and nail you with fees. With Chime, the award-winning app and debit card, you can avoid dreaded fees, since avoiding fees is what Chime specializes in. Eligible members can overdraft up to $200 with no fees. Signing up for Chime only takes 2 minutes and it doesn't affect your credit score. So get started today at chime.com/sacred. That's chime.com/SACRED. Again, to responsibly manage and maintain the money you work so hard for, sign up for Chime at chime.com/sacred. Banking services provided by and debit card issued by the Bancorp Bank or Stride Bank N.A., members FDIC. SpotMe eligibility requirements apply. Overdraft only applies to debit card purchases and cash withdrawals. Limits start at $20 and may be increased up to $200 by Chime. Chime member overdraft fee savings based on eligible members' use of SpotMe versus $33 average overdraft fee. Overdraft fee data based on Bankrate checking account survey and CRL June 2020 overdraft fees report. Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 171. My name is Colin Moriarty.
Oh,
Remember?
You okay there?
Look, I was having a stroke. Holy shit. Don't
That
quote my name
happens
very often.
sometimes.
My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my son, Chris Reagan. Chris, how are you today? Are you having a stroke?
Not yet. But the day is still young.
Still
you
time.
know? There's still time.
Yeah. I feel like I have several strokes a week where I'm like really quite flabbergasted at just the entire state of my mind sometimes. Where I'm like, what the hell is going on? This is
Just
what
one of
dying
those-
feels like.
You just wake up and you're like, wow, I forgot all of high school.
Right. Dude, I keep having, I think I've said this in the past, but I consistently keep having the same fucking dreams. And one of them is that I'm an adult that is going back to high school and not going to my classes. So like, I'm like,
Dude, I've had that dream.
yeah, it's really weird.
had that
and it's the
exact
same
dream.
classes, by the way. It's like, for some reason, deep in my mind, it's like the same fake teacher, the same fake subject.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. I don't like it. Anyway, I don't know what we're talking about. Also, we're joined as always by executive producer of Last Stand Media and co-host of Sacred Symbols, Dustin Furman. Dustin, how goes your life?
I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain. Traveling this weekend a little bit. We've been dealing with a sick puppy at our house. Not a puppy, our dog Frisk.
I
But
heard that's very sad.
she is on the up and up. It was weird. Like, we took her for a shot and it messed her up. And then her back was hurting. We gave her this medicine and then her back legs stopped working. So that was highly
Talking of
concerning.
strokes, Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, but we took her off the medicine and now her legs are every day getting more back to normal. So today she is able to lightly walk around, whereas like 2 days ago she couldn't walk at all. So not a fun experience, but we are on the up and up. So it's
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah,
it's all good here.
I'm sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
No, it sounds like you gave your dog polio temporarily. Is
No,
the way you described it. You gave her a shot and then she couldn't walk.
Right. The funny thing is the shot that she got, I'm trying to remember if it's lepto is what it's called. And I'm trying to remember which one is which, but they were telling us that it's for farm animals. It's like some kind of virus that they can get. And I'm like, well, my dog has never been on a farm ever. And we just gave her this shot because you told us to. It's like, and it's also, I found out after the shot is highly susceptible to many toxins. And I'm like, probably would have maybe liked to know a non-essential shot that is susceptible to my breed of dog.
Yeah.
Might have been nice to know.
Yeah, a little bit, maybe a little bit negligent, perhaps.
Yeah.
I'm not throwing out any accusations, but just, playing with hypotheticals, of course. Well, yeah, I you were saying polio, like FDR dragging himself around. I was thinking about John Locke in Lost dragging himself around the island. Is your dog saying, "Don't tell me what I can't do"?
Well, Locke's thing is the hatch. Like, he's the one who like slams it.
Yeah.
I was going to say we have to go back, but that's Jack.
That's
So,
Jack, right?
You can't mess up the lost quotes, at least in my book.
You can.
Very important.
All right. Well, welcome all to our weekly, ostensibly PlayStation podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. Chris and Dustin join me every week for a new episode, which we put up 3 days early and ad-free on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia, where more than 12,000 of you currently support us. You've made us the biggest gaming-centric Patreon in the history of the service. We really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for your service over there. Or I'm sorry, for your support on our service over there. Also, thank you for your service if you support us, if you're in the military.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for your service as well. Marines, Coast Guard, Space Force. Either of you guys know anyone in the Space Force yet? I don't think I know anyone yet.
I don't know. And I have a pretty like highly military family. Like I have a lot of uncles and aunts in like the military, and like they don't know anything about Space Force. I'm not even really convinced that it's real yet. Because like how could it be really?
I can agree with you there, and all I can say is I assure you one of your Puerto Rican uncles will be on the moon in the next 20 years.
Yeah,
that's all I have to say about that. But
Maybe.
Thank you so much for supporting us there. And we just couldn't do it without you. And we've been getting a lot of really nice feedback on some episodes we've done recently, which is really cool. I sat down with Luke Bernard, the game developer, and we talked about his upcoming game about the Holocaust, which people really enjoyed that conversation. We're going to make that free soon for everyone, so everyone can listen to it. It's going to be free, by the way, the game, and it will eventually be on PlayStation platforms, it looks like. But we had a really nice talk with him. I just sat down with Dylan Cuthbert, who, of course, is one of the creators of Star Fox. And he, of course, also was the lead programmer on Blasto and founded Q Games and did all the Pixel Junk games and all that. So we talked a great deal about his history with PlayStation, the Pixel Junk games, the future of the Tomorrow Children, and what they're trying to do with that, which was, of course, a PS4 exclusive that kind of failed to launch, and all of the rest. So that was an awesome conversation. I'm excited to roll that out as well. I think I'm going to sit down with Maddie if I can soon and do something about Konami, specifically about what games we might like to see Konami tackle, and we're going to talk about them in a little while. So there's a lot to get into. Of course, merch, laststandmedia.shop. Leave us nice reviews and follow us on iTunes and podcast services. Follow us on YouTube, etc., and so on. We appreciate all of that as well. Guys, I have a really important thing I want to get into right off the top, and I was so pleased when I saw this arrive. Remember, on Patreon, you can submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas to the show. Many of you do. We select what we can to integrate into our show. And we hear again from Austin. He says, "Hey, fellas, the guy who shit his pants on a date here. I got self-conscious about writing in because Maddie called me out on a Defining Duke episode a while back, making fun of me for writing in about shitting my pants. I guess I can't blame him." Now, just a second. I want to just step in here. Maddie, mind your business. All right? We don't tell you what's going on Defining Duke. We let you do whatever you want. You can't be. We could have heard from. We were worried. Don't you understand? We were worried about Austin, and it's Matt's fault.
Yeah,
that we never heard from him.
It's all his fault.
So I just wanted to throw that out there. But after getting called out, he continues in the last episode by you, Colin. I've been calling you out for a while, so you need to listen a little bit more often. I figured if I can satisfy a handful of listeners' curiosity and give hope to my fellow sharders, then it's worth my pride. We got married. Yeah, we're happily married and have been for about 5 months now. We also bought a house and moved to a different state. No poop babies yet, and hopefully not for a few years, but as long as Sacred is still running, you all will be some of the first to know. It's awesome to see everything you're involved in grow so much, Colin. I'm excited for the future. Thank you, Austin, for writing in. Very good to hear from you. Now, Dustin, I want to throw this to you first.
Wow.
I'm a little disappointed we weren't alerted to the wedding and weren't told. I feel like we gave Austin some of the strength he needed to move on. And I feel like at the very least, you, Dustin, should have been the ring bearer at the very least. So,
yeah.
How do you feel about all of this? Yeah. How do you feel about this?
doubt.
I'm not being invited to the wedding. A little insulted. That's fine.
I feel like I was trying to remember back to when Austin first wrote in. This had to have been a while ago. I remember that I was editing the show at the time, but this had to have been at least a year, maybe more.
I actually want to say, I don't know if I'm pushing it back too far, but was I in California? Still?
I feel like, yeah.
It's a distinct possibility that that's
Yeah.
the case. Although
So
although our sense of time might be completely destroyed.
Sure. Well, it is. It is.
Accurate.
Good point. So, Dustin, do you feel a little bit? I don't understand why we weren't kept in the loop, I guess is what I'm saying. And I really feel like, I guess, Chris, you were around for the entire thing. I mean, don't you feel like it would have been nice to acknowledge our role in your marriage a little bit?
I think he knows us probably well. He's listened to us talk for quite some time. He probably knows damn well that like I at least wasn't going to no fucking random wedding, you know.
I wasn't gonna go. I just
Yeah,
want to be
well,
honored with the invite. You know?
yeah, a courtesy invite. I understand
Right.
what you're saying.
We all know. Let me give you an example. Okay. When I was at IGN, I worked with this girl, Alexis, really nice girl, and I had Hunter Pence, the baseball player, right? Because he was signed with Sony to do promotion for MLB The Show.
Right.
And he played for the Giants, which were right down the street from IGN's offices. So he came in, I organized this thing, and then Ryan McCaffrey, who was kind of like our baseball expert, sat with him in the office. And what ended up happening? Well, Alexis and Hunter Pence fell in love, met that day, fell in love, got married, still married today. And what did they do when they got married? They invited Colin to the wedding. Why? Because if it wasn't for me, they would have never met. Now, it was a courtesy invite because I didn't go, but I knew that it was something that they did out of respect.
Right.
And I really appreciated that. So, Austin, I think you should annul this wedding.
Oh, shit.
Get married again.
Yeah.
And invite us. We will say no. But when you invite us, then the seeds are set. Then you can go ahead and get married comfortably.
Yeah. Then you'll have our blessing.
Yeah.
Because right now, your wedding. Right now, quite frankly, Austin, your wedding's a fucking sham.
Yeah,
It's not. Your marriage is a facade. It's a facsimile of a marriage. You gotta fix this.
Oof, we're really going in on Austin. I will say this though, I'm gonna wipe my brow a little bit. Like a Southern dandy. Look at me.
Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow?
But in all seriousness, Austin, this is a legendary move. I mean, I don't know how else to describe this.
Yeah,
but it's as if an absolutely legendary annals of history kind of thing. A man went on a date.
The definition of alpha, really.
Right. I mean, this is alpha energy. Mm-hmm. He went on a date. He shit himself. He excused himself to go home, remember, on the first date.
Yeah.
And then she called him.
Wow.
Yeah. I can't even. That's like an Aesop fable.
I'll tell you, it really is. Holy shit, Brothers Grimm.
Yeah.
That's like an Aesop fable.
It's totally fantastical. Like, there's no way. Like, I almost like wonder if this is even real at all. Because now I'm questioning.
I don't know.
Because like we would have definitely gotten a courtesy invite if this is real.
Yeah, I would assume that Austin would have been.
Because this sounds so fantastical. This is like fairies and shit.
Dude, well, let's say Austin isn't real, okay? Or maybe he's real and he's like totally playing us and trolling us right now. At this point, I'm not even mad. Like this has been like a great. That would also be alpha energy to convince, this PlayStation podcast, this world-renowned PlayStation podcast of this story of him shitting his pants on a date. It's months long.
Yeah,
and he's just there laughing. He might be alone laughing, but.
It's like the end of Lost. It's like, it's more about the journey,
right,
than about what was true.
Sure. I appreciate the story. I just want to give an example though. When we were at the meet and greet a few weeks ago in Pennsylvania, Suraj and Priyanka are getting married. Now, as I recall, they're Hindu, and I was saying, and they were saying that it was tradition to hand deliver invites to people that you respect and would like, show respect to, and look, he gave me their wedding invitation thing, and we were invited along with a handwritten note and all sorts of other things, so I'm just saying, Uncle Colin, he's getting invited to weddings.
Yeah.
And well, I don't call me Uncle Colin.
Yeah, don't do that.
Please don't, forget about that. Dustin, you have something to say?
Colin, you brought up the matter of the ring bearer. It made me think, with Chris and I being your two sons, if you were to get married, I mean, surely you would pick one of us. But which one? To be
the ring bearer, I think. But you're right. I mean, I was the ring bearer once for my aunt and uncle in 1991, and I think I've said this before. The ring bearer at my brother's wedding was our cousin Junior, Johnny. He's Junior, and because I'm Italian, so that we have to have a Junior somewhere. And he tripped and dropped the like the host or something like that when he was bringing it. And me and my brother started laughing in the middle of the church. It was great.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's been like whitewashed from history, but we remember. that happened.
Yeah.
All right, we're like almost 15 minutes into the show. We probably should do something else other than talk about all of this. But yeah, Austin, congratulations.
Yeah.
And Suraj and Priyanka, by the way, congratulations. And Austin, I will accept Godfather role. Well, there's one of two things you can do. I can either be the godfather of 2 of your children, or you can name one of your boys Colin, and we'll wipe the slate clean forever. Okay? There is a listener. She named her dog Colin Moriarty, which I appreciated.
Oh,
that's so stupid.
Yeah, I know. Great.
I love that.
I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm like,
whatever. Who's this next guy? Monta writing in?
Monta, yeah, let's move on. Monta wrote in. Thank you, Chris. Keeping me moving here. Monta wrote in, and he has a correction, but I would argue it's not a correction. I want to see what you guys think of this, okay? He says, hey, CDC, this is a correction to the crew's statements regarding the initiative being self-proclaimed quadruple A. So, as you'll recall, when the initiative was an Xbox studio founded in Santa Monica in 2018, when they were hiring for that studio, you might remember that there was a hiring note on Microsoft's website for a role, and they were saying that they go for quadruple A quality, AAAA quality, which doesn't exist. So that's what he's talking about. Everyone likes to dunk on Microsoft, he continues, and the initiative because of their self-proclaimed quadruple A status, but neither Microsoft nor the initiative has ever described themselves as quadruple A. The reference comes from an old job posting on Microsoft's website that is still there. The posting is for a principal program manager, and one of the bullet points listed under the qualification states, quote, experience shipping high-quality titles at quadruple A standards, end quote. Yes, Microsoft did use the term quadruple A in the job posting, but the term is being used to set the expectations of the person applying for the job and is literally being used to describe other games that the applicant has worked on. Any other conclusion is being inferred incorrectly from the reader. Nowhere in the job details does it state that the initiative believes itself to be a quadruple A game studio. On the other hand, Daniel Nurberger, the game's director on the initiative's own YouTube channel, describes the studio as, quote, staying small and staying agile, end quote, which is contrary to the quadruple A moniker. Windows Central has even reported on the studio and quoted Daniel Nurberger as saying that the same thing. The initiative has made it clear that they want what they want to be, so why do people continue to misrepresent a non-public facing bullet point in a job listing? Okay, so I don't know if you guys have heard this explanation. I have heard this explanation. Monta contradicts himself in back-to-back sentences. I don't know if you guys identified the sentence, but I will let you know. He says, everyone likes to dunk on Microsoft and the initiative because of their self-proclaimed quadruple A status, but neither Microsoft nor the initiative has ever described themselves as quadruple A. The reference comes from an old job posting on Microsoft's website that is still there.
Yeah.
I don't understand what you're talking about. First of all, now I'm not saying that they don't regret that, because I think they do. And they obviously have never used that term again because everyone was making fun of it. But some marketer or some recruiter thought that was a very clever thing. It went through all of the rungs of HR at Microsoft, very strenuous and serious stuff, and was posted to their website. And if they really did regret it, they would have edited it out, but they never did. So I understand what you're saying, but that was absurd to come out the gate like that. They did that on purpose to attract talent. And as I've said, and Chris knows, especially in the Santa Monica, LA area, there is more per capita game talent than there is maybe anywhere outside of Tokyo.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense that you would want to, say like, we want, Naughty Dog's there, Blizzard's there, Riot's there, Sony Santa Monica. I mean, there's a shit ton of studios there, and you're trying to attract talent. But I wanted to bring this up and kind of put this to bed because, Monta, in my opinion, you're writing in and then contradicting yourself. Microsoft did say it. It's on Microsoft's website. You just said it. You even linked to me the job listing that is still on Microsoft's website. Dustin, do you have any comments about this? This is frustrating me just because I don't think it's a big deal, but let's not have the pedantic corrections when it's from the horse's mouth. Microsoft doesn't do anything on accident. Yeah.
Right. I'm a little mixed on this because I do feel like Monta does have a point in that we don't see a press briefing or press letter from the initiative or Microsoft that ever called themselves quadruple A. But at the same time, it's like, well, this is still here. They could have edited it. Like you mentioned, like things like this get changed regularly.
Well, I was going to say they could have, when that started getting circulating hours after it was posted, they could have literally released a small statement or a correction and saying, we actually didn't mean to write that. It's AAA is the moniker, as you all know. It was just a typo.
Right.
That could have been easily done and fit, and no one would ever talk about this again. Everyone would have forgotten.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's why
I'm
I'm
sorry to
mixed
interrupt.
on it.
Yeah.
It's easy to change things like that or issue a correction or whatever. And especially they saw the news cycle around it. And like you said, at that moment, they could have nipped it in the bud, just taken it right out. But no, they let it stand because it was good marketing for the initiative and Microsoft overall. So yeah, that's the part that's the confirming part to me. They saw the news cycle, they didn't do anything about it. So I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, well, they never corrected the record, so I think it's fair.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to kind of poke fun at it. I do agree that like if something's in like a job listing that's kind of like in the back end, it's like not necessarily like a public, thing. Fair enough. I would say that if they went out and corrected the record after that, I would say that yeah, it would be a dumb thing to continue to dunk on. But the fact that they allow that narrative to kind of set itself and kind of like just kind of set sail on its own, and they never said anything about it. They never said like, hey, by the way, this was like a typo, or hey, by the way, this was a mistake, or even just by the way, it's like, hey, it was just like a thing to attract talent, whatever. On the back end, it's like we're not like a quadruple A studio, we're AAA. Like it's we're a Microsoft first party. If any of that was ever said, that would have nipped it in the bud. But I think it's fair to poke fun. And you know what, I would go even further to say I would say they still have time. I would say like if they went out and be like, hey, by the way, I know it's been a while, but this narrative isn't helping us anymore. And just thought I'd let you know this wasn't like necessarily like part of the plan. I think at that point, like, yeah, fucking why not? But they let it go, they let it run and they never corrected it. So I just don't see why. I don't see the necessity in defending,
Right. That's the whole point, is that we're just poking fun at it. It doesn't really matter. I think it explains that something was lost in translation. Well, not in translation, but I think in intent. Like, I don't think that the initiative was made to do what they're doing. I think the initiative was originally made to be much bigger, and they're failing to do that. And I think that's why Microsoft might right. Well, the whole Crystal Dynamics thing is its own thing, which we talk, and that's true. But I was saying more that might be why Microsoft is so encouraged rather by buying developers, because they're realizing that building something from the ground up is really hard. Sony hasn't done that in a while. I mean, with anything of substance, Pixel Opus was built from the ground up, etc. But they typically create a second party relationship with a studio and then buy them. You almost let them do the hard work, create their own culture, and then absorb them. I think Microsoft realized that, well, this is much harder than we thought, because there's just no way that their intention was to have nothing to show at all in 2022, basically.
Yeah.
And that they were going to work with beleaguered Crystal Dynamics. I just think you can kind of easily connect the dots. So Manta, I mean, I appreciate you writing in, but I totally disagree with the point. And it doesn't really matter, because I wish them the very best. I hope they make great games. By the way, Drew Murray, who's no longer there, but was a high-ranking guy there who went back to Insomniac recently, was hired at that company because I told him about it when I was at dinner. I'm like, hey, Drew, did you know that they're hiring at, because made an Xbox studio, and so he'll tell you himself like that he went there and hired people there and found his way there because of my suggestion. So you're welcome. And finally, Fox Hop Smash wrote in and said, hello, mighty voices in my head, and Dustin. So gentlemen, I have talked to my wife in regards to Brandon's fly. So this is, by the way, just to catch everyone up, we were talking at our live show about how the wife of a listener noticed that another listener's fly was down, yet let him take pictures with his fly down, not saying anything, which I thought was a great anime style betrayal. Fox Hop Smash continues. She expressed to me that she didn't want people to think she was deliberately looking at his manhood area, which I kind of understand. But still, I told her she could have whispered to me about the situation, but she failed to do so. She gives her best regards to Brandon and a heartfelt apology to him and his now immortalized unzipped crotch area. I don't know if a punishment is necessary, but I'll leave that up to you guys. Thanks for the content, and everyone check your zippers now. Dustin, do we want to punish Fox Hop Smash's wife?
Well, I mean, there is a lot of options that we could consider here, surely. But again, I'm going to go back to what I said last week, in that she is already in an uncomfortable situation with all these fucking dorks, us included.
That's true.
And so I don't want to give her a hard time because, I mean, I don't know if I would want to be around us in that situation. So it's fair
I don't want to be around us ever. You know,
Yeah.
the only reason I'm around me is because I have to be.
Right.
So,
Fair.
Chris, are we gonna let this one go?
I think so. It's a fly. Come on. What is it? The 40s?
Yeah.
Where they stone you to death if you got your fly undone?
Listen, see, we're taking you downtown in the paddy wagon. And, yeah, because your dick's hanging out of your pants.
Your trousers open, see?
All right, thanks for writing in, Fox Hop Smash. All is forgiven. Well, it's not up to me, actually, but I forgive you. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Sacred Symbols listeners can get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/symbols. There are multiple components to taking care of yourself, some more obvious than others. You'll want to tend to your physical health, of course, eat right when you can, work out regularly, and all of that. And another vital and often overlooked component of personal health is the mental aspect, which for many of us is the ultimate key to wellness. Therapy is a wonderful tool to take advantage of in this regard, and BetterHelp is an awesome way to pursue therapy. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. For those of you who have experience with therapy like I do, the aforementioned statement is stark, because it's not typically how therapy works. Therapy can be rigid in its delivery. You go somewhere, you wait, you talk to someone, you go home. It doesn't have to work like that, though. There's no reason therapy can't be over the phone or on video or even via text, except, of course, because that's not the way things have typically been done. But millions of people are experiencing the positive benefits of therapy as I sit here and speak to you today. And more of them are doing it their way, with BetterHelp. I'm a true believer in mental wellness and all that comes with it. Mindfulness, kindness, and of course, working on yourself. And I think BetterHelp offers a great suite of options for people looking to get help, helping themselves. Because that's perhaps the biggest step of all, merely taking that first step. Once you go to betterhelp.com/symbols and sign up, you can begin communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. And not only are sessions delivered in a format that's best for you, voice, video, or whatever, but you can begin tackling the issues in your life that most need addressing. Motivation issues or a bad temper, insecurity at work or in a relationship, stress, or my own unfortunate Achilles heel, anxiety. You deserve to be happy, fulfilled, and content. Therapy is a great way to deal with the human struggles that stand between you and the positive outcomes you deserve and desire. So give BetterHelp a try. Again, for 10% off your first month of therapy sessions, head to betterhelp.com/symbols. That's BETTERHELP.com/SYMBOLS. All right, let's get into some smaller news items, boys, that I want to kind of work my way through before we get into what we're playing, which is extensive.
Yeah.
First, I wanted to say, rest in peace, Koichi Sugiyama. This man is a legendary game composer, best known for his Dragon Quest music. Apparently, according to Gamatsu, he got his Dragon Quest 12 work done, at least some of it, and he passed away at 90, and he actually passed away in late September. We just didn't hear anything about it. It was posted about on the official the official Japanese Dragon Quest blog. I was saddened by this, Dustin, and Chris, I know you don't play Dragon Quest or any of these games, so I won't belabor the point with you. But Dustin, I just wanted to throw this over to you briefly just to see what your thoughts are, because I was saddened by this. I feel like I mean, that's a jam. Like everyone that plays role-playing games knows that jam. I mean, that came out of his mind. So I was just really sad. And they said on the post that he wrote more than 500 Dragon Quest songs. Yeah. So funeral's already done. He's already buried or whatever. But I was just curious what you might have thought.
Yeah, this guy obviously legendary for sure. I was telling Holly about this when I was reading the notes, because I was like, like the battle music that you hear over and over and over. I'm like, yeah, he passed away. Obviously, a controversial figure in some ways, in that he was very staunchly. He had a firm grip on the rights of Dragon Quest, which is part of the reason why the orchestrated versions were not in the original version of 11. And it had something to do with like being worried that the CDs or the concerts tickets wouldn't do as well if the orchestrated versions were in the game. There's also something about him being a he was like a pretty staunch Japanese nationalist. And
I think he was like a war crimes denier. Yeah.
Right.
I've read that. He's 90. So
right.
he was around at that time. I think he might have had a little shame.
I know if I don't mention that right now, someone is going to say in the comments like, well, blah, blah, which it's like, yeah, we can acknowledge controversial people can still do great things. And his work on Dragon Quest is incredible. I mean, when I was telling Holly this, she said he was like, "Oh, he's the John Williams of Dragon Quest." And I was like, "Yeah, he's been with it the entire time, right?"
Yeah, absolutely, since the very beginning.
Yeah.
And I was reading. I was just a little not taken aback, but confused by this because Akira Toriyama, who of course is the artist that created Dragon Quest, and then Yuji Horii, who's the longtime producer, they both said that they were sorry to hear of Mr. Sugiyama's sudden obituary. I'm reading the translation, so it could be a different translation, but it made it seem like they didn't know and like weren't involved. And I found that weird. Like, was this guy like? You would think they would go to his funeral. I mean, or something. Maybe
Right.
I'm just totally misrepresenting the closeness of their relationship, but especially from Horii. He calls him, Sugiyami Sensei and all that kind of stuff. So, a lot of respect. And
Yeah,
I just wanted to throw that out there because
yeah.
I love Dragon Quest.
It's a shame when composers in particular, because like I don't know, like I feel like they are such a unique part of like a game's identity to the point where like, there's a lot of design that goes into any given video game, right? It's like a team of people, and even if you have like an idea guy who shapes a lot of it, there's really only like one guy who has like such a fundamental amount of impact on a project like a composer does, to the point where like it's almost like Darren Korb over at the studio that makes Bastion. I forget their Supergiant.
Yeah.
Supergiant.
Yeah, like, or even just like Marty O'Donnell or other composers. Like I wouldn't know the first thing about composing music. So like when those people die, it's like, how do you even replace those people? It seems you can't just hire for that, You can't just put out a job listing. It's like, hey, we're looking for a legendary composer who like understand, like, I don't know, like the hiring process alone for that must be insane. So I don't know anything about Dragon Quest, but I know how important a composer is to the identity of a series. And that's a real shame.
Yeah. I was thinking about that, Chris, with, you mentioned Marty O'Donnell with Halo, and in my replay of all of them. Oh yeah. And that was it. Just Destiny 1 or
Destiny 1. Yeah.
Yeah. When you go from Halo 3 to Halo 4, it's not that the Halo 4 soundtrack is even bad. It's just when you're coming from his music in Halo 3, it's like something is clearly off. There's a whole of that game.
There's a whole identity that like an individual composer brings to a series that almost gets kind of enveloped into its own into the same thing, and it's hard. You can't replace that really, and to know that somebody who's been with the series that long is just gone now. It's like, how do you? They're definitely going to reuse a lot of that because it's it's one with the series, but which that sucks.
That's what they'll do, like with Dragon Quest. I mean, they've already been using a lot of the same themes for years. But it is funny, just to add to your point, is just people are feeling the nostalgia of Halo right now. And I can't help but think that so much of that, not all of it, but a lot of it is attributed to the fact that all of the marketing is using the classic Halo music like very prominently, where in the other two games they were trying to like step away from it. So it's I guess to wrap up this point, it's a often forgotten about detail how much music is core to the identity of either a game or a series. And so to see someone like this pass on, this is could be a turning point, maybe for the better, but who knows?
Yeah, it's. I was interested in reading about him too, just in that I didn't realize, because I don't know much about composition, especially Japanese composition. I am a musician, but I mean, as far as like scoring, that's not really a passion of mine at all. But
yeah,
I was surprised. Like, he didn't do very much outside of Dragon Quest. Like, he did a lot of Japanese stuff, but in games, like, he didn't do very much at all. So he was just kind of hanging around and had those nice hits. And so Koichi Sugiyama, we wish you the very best, even though indeed Japanese war crimes were real. And moving on, I wanted to just bring up that, and this is relevant just for us, but the Game Awards are happening. Let me see here on December 9th. Jeff Keighley, of course, leading the way live in person from LA, the Microsoft Theater. That's the Dolby Theater, right? Is that the renamed Dolby Theater? That might be a different place.
This is the place that's right by where E3 is.
Yeah,
like,
I think that's
right in the downtown.
Yeah, I think that's
right by
old
the
Dolby
convention
bit.
center.
Yeah, I think it's one and the same. And so yeah, December 9th, live in person from Los Angeles, streaming, obviously, global celebration of gaming, as Keeley says. Obviously, there will be announcements and all that kind of stuff there. So we'll cover that. Let me see. Give people a little bit of heads up of what the plan is, I guess. December 9th is a Thursday. So I would assume we'll actually record late that day and post immediately, but we'll find out what happens. So keep an eye on that. I also wanted to point people towards just this interesting interview that Jim Ryan conducted over at gamesindustry.biz. It's called Jim Ryan, I Would Love a World Where Hundreds of Millions Enjoy Our Games. Now, we'll get to this later about some of the stuff he said in here because it plays into another story, but it's just an interesting read about his history with the company and how he found his way and all of that. But there is I don't know if you guys saw this. I tweeted this out. There is an hysterical quote in here that Ken Kutaragi apparently said to him. So Ken Kutaragi, of course, was like, clearly just did whatever the fuck he wanted. And he's been gone long from Sony. We miss you, Ken. But the father of PlayStation basically said to him, so PS2 wasn't doing very well in Europe originally. And he's telling the story about this. And he was saying the reason was because the EU still hadn't unified money. So he was saying, like, we had this lira and we had fucking ruples and pounds, and it was just a mess, and it was confusing everyone. And then so he says, the story says the leadership, or he says, quote, the leadership, which I was a part of, was summoned over to Tokyo to sit with Ken Kutaragi, the father of PlayStation. Ken is a sort of very imposing figure, personally and at an industry level. And he sat us down and just said, please change your inefficient business. So we were like, yeah, Ken, that's great advice. We'll go ahead and do that. So we returned and resolved to do better. Ken Kutaragi had them fly out and said, please change your inefficient business. And then flew them back to London. It's good shit.
Great advice.
Good shit.
Yeah. That is insane. That is like super villainous.
Oh, Ken, we miss you, buddy. But yeah, go check out that interview if you'd like. Again, it's called Jim Ryan, I Would Love a World Where Hundreds of Millions Enjoy Our Games. We'll get back to that later on, of course, because there's more to say about that. Also, just a quick thing about Randy Pitchford, the lead of Gearbox Software. He is stepping down as president of Gearbox. This isn't really super important because Gearbox Entertainment is now Gearbox Publishing, Gearbox Software, and Gearbox Studios. You'll recall that there are now 3 entities under that silo, which is then housed under Embracer. So what ended up happening is Randy Pitchford basically got promoted. And I think people are kind of missing the point on this because people are like, oh, Randy's out as CEO. And I'm like, Randy is the CEO of Gearbox Entertainment now. Right? Like everyone answers to him. So, and now he answers to Embracer. So I just wanted to see that and put that into context in case people were curious and see that bouncing around. Now, yeah, Chris, I wanted. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, because I was gonna say because they got the entertainment thing that's like the movie now, right? Like that's like focusing on like transmedia stuff.
Yeah, I think they're doing transmedia, publishing, internal development. I think those are the 3 silos.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and they're, by the way, very similar to Microsoft with Bethesda. Embracer has wisely taken Gearbox and left them alone, and I think that's the best way to do it. Totally. They have. I know people that work there and have known people that work there. Interesting culture down there. I don't know how it would fit with like a European publisher, but Texas is a different kind of place. Yeah. So we have that to deal with. But Chris, as I was saying, I wanted to ask you about this next one. So Twitch, basically what ended up happening is that Twitch got hacked and everyone's like creator information, nothing like super crazy, but their creator information was released. And amongst that was how much money everyone's making. Now, I was a little surprised by this outroar because you can just do the math, can't you? I mean, can't you just multiply the amount of subscribers by the least amount of money a person can make at least and figure that out? So, but anyway, I was just curious, Chris, because you're more into the streaming space. I know Dustin does streaming too, but some of these people and all that. I was just kind of wondering like what you thought of this. It seemed to me to be much ado about nothing. I know people were focusing on that Hassan socialist dude on Twitch. Right. Who was the same guy that bought like the millions of dollar house in LA. And it is totally comical that you're talking about, you're acting like you're a socialist warrior and you're doing all these things. I totally think that that's silly, but at the same time, I don't really care how much money people are making. That's totally his problem. Like I wasn't a fan of him before. No offense to him. I don't know him. Yeah. But I wasn't a fan of his before. So like, why would I go take the piss out of him now? Right. Like,
right.
What do I care? So anyway, what did you think of this leak?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't understand the like news flash. Content creators make money. Like I don't understand like what there was a whole thing like on my Twitter feed, it was just like clowning. I was like, oh, I can't believe these people make this much or whatever. And it's like, I'm surprised. Look, I'm astonished that we're in this reality as well.
Yeah,
Like, I have no idea how it is that I am comfortable. Like, it makes no sense. But this is just the reality. Like, people will go where entertainment is, and they will pay for that entertainment. It's not anything new. It's just, I feel like there's this kind of cultural, and I don't even think I don't understand it, right? There is this kind of, people look down on streaming because it's new, and it's a lot newer than everything else. It's newer than like internet content creation. It's newer than, you know, even just indie game development stuff or indie filmmaking. It's the newest thing. And it is, from the outside looking in, just a bunch of people like sitting in front of a webcam doing fuck all. Like, they're doing what you're doing, basically, like at your desk, except they're making a ton of money. And the difference is that, I don't know, these people have, you know, these people stream a hilarious amount. Like, it's like 10 hours a day or something. I would never, that sounds insane. It isn't as much, you know, creative work as like, you know, writing something and then like filming it and like going to like some studio and getting it's not that much work, but it's still remarkably exhausting to stream like 10 hours a day every single day. And they're putting that work in, and people are coming and they're paying. It's no different than people paying a bunch of money to go to a baseball game to see like some athlete they like, or a concert to see like some musician they like. It's weird, and I understand the confusion about it, because I don't know, when I stream, I don't even understand why people are, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't even understand why
I
people
do
are,
understand. I totally get it, because I feel bad about that too. Like, when I stream, I do really well, like immediately in the 0.1% or something of Twitch, and I'm like, that's cool, but I don't really want to do this. You know, like, this isn't
right.
That's not really where my mind's at.
It's not
It feels
creatively satisfying,
right.
But
For me,
I don't know. I just don't know why people are so upset. Like, popular people make a lot of money. Like, surprise.
yeah. Well, I think I'm sure, Chris, people have said this to you in the past, but being a content creator, people have said it to me in the past, where it's like, I'll say that I bought this thing, and it's like, this is what you're spending my money on, and it's like, yeah, I don't think so, buddy.
Yeah.
So I think this is a multifaceted problem, Dustin, and I'm curious what you think about it, especially because you're streaming and you're doing pretty well over there. Is that I think Chris is exactly right. There's more than meets the eye with all of this stuff, way more. And I think Jez Corden, I was actually going and looking at it. Jez Corden, friend of the show, said, yeah, here it is. Seriously, not sure why people are so mad about Twitch streamers' payouts. Sports stars get paid far more. If it's easy to do, why don't you do it? And that was, I think, a really powerful thing. Because I say that about our podcast a lot when there's naysayers. It's like, cool, you can not like our podcast, but I don't think you have any chance of sitting in this chair and doing a better show than us. Maybe if you practice and work really hard at it, you can, right? But you're not going to just sit here and do it. It takes practice. It takes know-how. And it's the same thing with streaming. I know it seems nonsensical. And a lot of it, like Chris says, is nonsensical. But even in the nonsense, even in the chaos, is a lot of order and intent. And it's the same thing I always say about the Kardashians, who I think people shit all over the Kardashians. I'm like, dude, the Kardashians might be some of the smartest people I've ever encountered in society. They were given like a fraction of a platform that a lot of people were given back in the mid-aughts on VH1, on E, and they made fucking billions and billions and billions of dollars. That's not stupid. That's brilliant. And if people don't really understand that, then I think another part of it, because Chris, it's what you said. It's like, why can't I do this? Or why am I not doing this and all that? And I'm like, I totally get that. I mean, it sucks. I worked shitty jobs and I don't ever want to go back to them. But a lot of it seems like it comes off to me, Dustin, as envy too. And I think it's kind of sad. Like, just worry about yourself. Don't worry about the other guy's money. Worry about how you can make more money. There's enough money for everyone.
Yeah. I should also say that envy is like, it's a negative word, but at the same time, it's like, dude, anytime that I have criticized somebody who's making a shit ton of money and somebody goes like, you're just jealous that they're a billionaire, I'm immediately like, yeah, absolutely. Like, what do you mean? Yeah, of course. Right. You'd be out of your mind not to be jealous of a billionaire. Like, they have the cheat code to being alive. You understand? Like, they never have to worry about anything. Are you kidding?
I know, that's like it's a whole other level. It's a whole other level.
It's a whole like different level. That's beyond rich. You know, like being rich is having like millions of dollars is one thing, and then having like billions. Of course, I'm jealous. Like, let's get that out of the way right now. I am absolutely jealous. And I'm totally fine with that.
I love that too. I mean, I definitely, you're right. We've had this conversation, I think, about the word selfish, which I think is a similar thing, selfish, where obviously that's a negative word, negative connotations. And I think mostly that's accurate and appropriate. But living for yourself is not a bad thing. That is selfish. No. So you're right. It's like envy is like, is envy one of the 7 deadly sins?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, Dustin, what do you have to say?
I feel like some of them probably should have made more money, honestly. Twitch has taken at the high level, you can negotiate a better cut than 50%. But
is that what you get for a partner? Is 50%?
I don't really know.
That's crazy,
about
I'm
partnership.
A partner, I don't even know.
Yeah,
me neither.
I was denied partnership a few weeks ago. So
that's fucking bullshit. That's bullshit, by the way. We all know why that happened.
Honestly, my viewer average isn't high enough, really. I had a temporary boost during E3, so I get it. I'm not mad at Twitch or whatever.
I am.
But $2.50 out of a $5 sub, like, look at another industry like Apple, which people complain about Apple, their percent being too high. I think theirs is like a 70-30.
Right. That's what it is on PSN too, and XBLA.
If you're a higher level, a big Twitch streamer, then you can negotiate with Twitch for better amounts. But I don't know. The fact that it's 50-50 is like not good, but they're the only ones, really. I mean, other than YouTube now, but that's kind of one of the nice things about YouTube entering the space and starting to hopefully put a little fire under Twitch. I still think that YouTube needs to make a lot of changes before they can really start being a dominating force in the streaming space. But as far as like the whole angle on this, because I think you guys covered the people are annoyed about Twitch streamers making money. I don't know. Those people are dumb. Like, you guys perfectly illustrated why. So I just want to highlight the angle of the fact that content creators on Twitch are increasingly unhappy with Twitch. And then they go and leak all this data at the same time, which apparently the data did not include like personal info. Like, whoever the leaker was specifically made sure that didn't get out. I don't know. I don't really
kind of like Edward Snowden style, like where he he leaked everything and made sure no one specifically was discussed.
Which then I'm like, well, what was the point? Was the point to expose that Twitch streamers make a lot of money? I just don't.
Well, this brings us back to the origin. This brings us back to the origin. You can just do that math yourself. And that's why I think that Hassan guy was right when he's like, this is public information. It's not like Patreon where you really have no idea, right? If people have like multiple tiers and stuff like that, people aren't getting in at $1 or $2 a month on Twitch. You can have like a much higher baseline there. So the math is the math. And if you're, Jesus Christ, if you think it's so easy, then go do it.
Right.
I encourage people, if they really think they have it, then go do it. But prepare to fail because it's hard and it's competitive. And that's no insult to anyone. That's just reality. There's too much envy in this world. And I'm sick of it. All right. A couple of things from GTA World. Just wanted to say, first of all, more leaks. GTA Trilogy, the Definitive Edition trophy icons leak. Not the trophies, but the trophy icons. And what's interesting about these is that some of them are the same as the PS4 versions. Some of them are different. So it looks like we're going to get different lists there, but we still don't know the Definitive Edition 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. We have no idea when they're coming. I'm a little surprised Rockstar has not officially announced them, considering everything is leaking. And Rockstar doesn't leak anything. So I have no idea what the fuck they're thinking with this. This is an example of why publishers don't tell anyone anything, right? Like they told the Korean Games Rating Board, they leaked their shit. The stuff's on Steam. Like, the stuff is in metadata on the internet. Like, it's like, holy Christ, man. No wonder they don't. No one talks to anyone. But the other interesting thing I just wanted to bring up is that finally, Rockstar has deleted The Agent from their list of games on their website.
It's a sign. It's coming.
So any holdouts that we were gonna see this game come to life, of course. So for people that are newer, this was a stealth game, actually. I think what ended up happening was, and I think this might be where like Max Payne kind of got involved, like later on with Rockstar, was I think they were looking for more linear style, straightforward shooters. And this game, as people will remember, was teased in 2007, announced in 2009, and was supposed to be a Rockstar developed PlayStation 3 exclusive. And it never materialized. And it took place during the Cold War, which is kind of cool, in the 1970s, which is a very rarely visited era in video games. So I think that would have been neat. Cold War is getting a little more common, which is cool. So I just wanted to throw that out there. There's not much else to say, but we kind of had hope that this game would be revived because actually Rockstar kept refiling the trademark. So there is way more to this than we have any idea what happened. And and we were talking about how much of a sieve they've been with some of these leaks. But man, people talk to me about everything, dude. I hear from people about all sorts of things. Most of the things I hear, I don't say anything about. I can say with absolute candor, no one has ever talked to me about this game. No one has ever one time said to me anything about this game. So I would love to know more. And if you're out there and you know more, you can always talk to me on the record if you want, but off the record or on background is fine too. All right. Couple more things. Capcom's new focus. PC. This was written over on VGC. Our friends over at VGC, Andy Robinson, friend of the show, wrote a story called Capcom says it will make PC its main platform going forward. And the story reads in part, quote, that's according to the company's COO, Hiroshiro Sugimoto, who told Japanese publication Nikkei that the Resident Evil and Monster Hunter firm will mainly focus on PC software going forward. The exec indicated that Capcom hopes to increase PC software sales to the point where the platforms make up half of all of their sales by the end of next year. Quote, this is what he said, quote, PC is driving global sales. We have recently stated that there will be that we will make the PC our main platform. At this year's Tokyo Game Show, we focused on exhibiting the PC version of Monster Hunter Rise, and I think people will be able to experience the change in our approach. The pandemic is changing the way people look at PCs. Smartphones are convenient, but their screens are small, and their touch panels are difficult to operate, so they're not suitable for home working or school classes. I think PCs will be the next big thing after smartphones. The PC can also play high-quality games, so the number of PC users should increase as the understanding of the PC increases. We will expand our business for dedicated game consoles, which has been the mainstream up to now, but PC will be the mainstream in the future. Next year or the year after, we want to equalize the ratio of sales to PCs to dedicated consoles, end quote. Uh-oh. Dustin, I found this shocking when I read this. Not that someone's saying it, but who's saying it. Capcom is a staunch member of the console community in Japan. And I understand that they've seen great sales on PC, but I don't know where this is coming from. This seemed on tilt in some way where I was like, what? Like, what? Why are you even saying this? So what do you make of this?
Well, it seems like they're seeing the numbers based on some of the more recent releases of their games on PC. In addition to, I would imagine that this might make more sense with the way games are just developed now, in that you target PC, which really, not that the sky's the limit, but much more powerful than consoles. And I mean, when you have a graphics card that is $700 or $800 for just the card alone, then yeah, it's going to be a lot more powerful. But
yeah,
at that point, if you target the highest platform and then rebuild it downward for consoles, that just makes more sense to me. Capcom being a very Japanese company, and the Japanese game development, their relationship with PC has changed drastically over the past few years, where we're now seeing much stronger support for the PC from the Japanese market. You think back to things like Dark Souls never came to PC, and then when it finally did, it was like a really, really bad port. So seeing this change is surprising, no doubt, but at the same time, looking at how they have focused more on PC, I'm sure they're seeing the returns, and then they're thinking like, well, this probably just makes more sense to do in the long run, to build for this platform and then build the games for consoles afterwards. So that makes a lot of sense. And you got to wonder too, an important element is we are potentially on the precipice of a new sub-platform with the Steam Deck, especially because Valve, and I think that I don't know if a lot of people have picked up on this, Valve is making Steam Deck's version of Steam open to other manufacturers to develop their own type of quote unquote Steam Deck. So if the Steam Deck is a hit, then we're going to see other competitors enter that market. And especially with the demands of people that love the Switch and want a more powerful Switch, Capcom could just be like, man, we're already seeing success on PC. It seems like PC-like handhelds could be a big hit in Japan where they care about portables. And it makes sense from a development practice to start with the highest common denominator. Then why wouldn't we do this? So I feel like it seems like a surprise initially, but when you lay out all the points on why it makes sense, then maybe it's not that surprising.
What do you think, Chris, about this? I think Dustin makes a lot of great points. Capcom seeing success there. As we see with the Nix's acquisition with Sony and others, there's more attention being paid to doing it right, as opposed to what Dustin was saying when games are being brought over and not doing very well. And even Sony itself is seeing success on PC. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this as it relates to PlayStation when we get into the news itself. But any thoughts on Capcom's kind of the words here? I just found it strange because Capcom just has always been associated with hardcore console gaming to me.
Yeah. I don't know if I have anything to add to what Dustin said. I feel like he kind of laid all my thoughts out perfectly, like exactly as I would have said them. But I do think it's bizarre that they bothered to say anything, because this could easily have been an internal strategy that they didn't necessarily have to publicize. It's weird to me that they are being vocal about it, because it seems like that would just alarm people, as it has clearly like been a little bit alarming to us. I don't know though. It's kind of strange because I don't necessarily associate Capcom with console as much, even though I know that that's like very clearly like where they're primarily, like I associate Capcom with like arcade cabinets, because that's like where I played so many, like I like Marvel vs. Capcom and like just all these like old school Capcom. I remember playing them at like pizza shops. Like I rarely played them at home until I think, maybe Resident Evil 4 and like onward was when I started. It's like, oh, cool. Okay. So this is, I can play these at home.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, I don't know. I think I understand the strategy. I understand the reasoning. I think Dustin made perfect sense. I just think it is bizarre to come out and say it like that, especially when they're presumably like kind of in the middle of this transition, not even like at necessarily the start. They're I can understand if maybe they put something out, and it was on PC and not on console, and people were like, "What's this? What's going on?" And they were like asked, and they were like, "Well, this is the reason." But instead it was just kind of preemptive almost like to get people prepared for like that kind of future where people might have to wait or however they decide to go about that strategy. But it is bizarre that they said anything about it.
Corporations like to telegraph their moves, but I generally agree with you that the evidence would have been in the data, and then you would have had to say nothing because it would have been natural for you to continue towards the inclination of PC development first. So I did find the statement a little weird, though, just in the sense that he's talking about smartphones and PCs like they're these newfangled devices. Like, as people familiarize themselves with PC, I'm like, dude, the PC came out in 1977. What the fuck are you talking about? I mean, even earlier than that, if you count like the really non-consumer grade ones like the Alto and stuff. But Apple II? 1977, buddy.
I do think PC is becoming a lot more approachable, though, lately. Yeah. I think a lot of that is to do with, honestly, just kind of this weird crescendo that we're reaching with graphics technology, where things can only get so good looking before it doesn't really justify the work it takes to make it so, we're kind of, I feel like for the last like several years, we've been able to run games that look remarkably well, that don't necessarily need much more. Like you could get a bump in resolution, or like a bump in frame rate, but for the most part, things have looked kind of the same for the last, I would argue, like 7 years. Like things haven't really looked like, outside of like obvious resolution jumps, like style and like graphical presentation hasn't really jumped that far. And I feel like if you have a graphics card from even like 2017 or 2016, you're probably still fine running a lot of things on like medium settings and them still looking pretty good. So we're at this point where it's not really that expensive to get a good PC or something that runs acceptably well and obviously PC is growing. It's never going to stop growing. It's an ongoing platform that never ages out your content based on the graphics technology that you have. It's not like consoles in that sense where, backwards compatibility stops for some reason or any of that. Your library continues with you. And I think that's what PlayStation and Xbox are learning now with backwards compatibility, is that people want that kind of reliable platform that they can invest in and understand will be supported for the foreseeable future. So I think it's a combination of a lot of things that Dustin was talking about, and I think that essence of PC where this is not only more affordable than it's ever been, but we're also just at a point where it's simpler to use than it ever has been. So I don't know. I think it makes sense, but again, just weird to say.
Very well said.
Guys, for the longest time, our better halves have been dreaming about the perfect wedding ring. Cut, clarity, the carrot, you know the drill. What about the guys, though? Clearly, some jewelry stores view the guy's ring as an afterthought. Who really cares about the guy's band, right? Well, Manly Bands does, and they're here to save you from an otherwise hellish band buying experience. Manly Bands gives you the freedom to choose how your band looks, in just about every type of earthly material imaginable, and even some from space. For me, I chose the Genius, and while it didn't really help with my intellect, it is a beautiful matte black ring that totally suits my style. Shopping for it was really easy, and honestly the hardest part was choosing the one I wanted since there were so many great options. To get started, order the Manly Ring Sizer from Manly Bands to ensure that your ring will fit perfectly during work and play. Once you know your size, it's time for the fun part. Manly Bands has an insane selection of materials to choose from. If you're feeling even more creative, you can customize your band from scratch, choosing the style, material, inlay, sleeve, and finish. Once you've made your selection, Manly Bands offers free shipping worldwide, a 30-day exchange policy, and a free warranty. So while there's a chance that your marriage could not work out, there's a 100% chance that you're going to love your band. To order your Manly Band and get 21% off plus a free silicone ring, go to manlybands.com/sacred. That's manlybands.com/sacred for 21% off. Manly Bands, the best damn rings, period.
A couple more things I just want to get through quickly. Thought you guys would find this funny. People can go read about this on Komatsu. The story's called Panzer Dragoon Voyage Record Canceled Following Death of Wildman Producer and CEO Haruto Watanabe. And then update 2, Watanabe not dead. So basically what ended up happening over in Japan is that Haruto Watanabe, who's the CEO of this developer, and I think OG Panzer and Sega guy, they're making a VR game, PSVR game, Panzer Dragoon Voyage Record. And the official account of the game tweeted out, Panzer Dragoon Voyage Record has been canceled due to the cancellation of the contract by Sega and the death of producer Haruto Watanabe, CEO of Wildman Inc. Thank you for your support, end quote. And then everyone's like, what? And then a bunch of people in Japan that know him started tweeting like, he's alive. Like, apparently people were really upset about this. Like you can't really get it through translation, but people were being like, what the fuck, man? Like apparently people like ran and like went to his house or went to his office and all that stuff. And like, just a really weird story. So I just wanted to bring that up in case anyone wants to go read about that. It's on Komatsu and others. And then
I'm putting out a tweet, Colin, that says Sacred Symbols is canceled due to the death of Colin Moriarty. Just randomly one, maybe on April Fool's. April 1st, look for it.
Yeah, that would be good.
Update 2, Moriarty not dead.
Yeah, Moriarty
That's
not dead.
crazy, man. This is insane that you could just that they could just report a man's death by accident.
It's his own studio reporting his death. I mean, that's the weirdest part. Like what? And their cancellation, like Sega canceled the contract and Sega's like, no, we didn't. You know,
this is insane. You cannot. That can't be an accident, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's got to be something.
How could that possibly be an accident? It's either like somebody hacked in and like it was like a joke or something, or some disgruntled employee did. Like, there's no way this could. There's no way you can accidentally confirm the death of somebody at your studio like that. Like, that's insane. And to publicize it like that is hilarious.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll be interested to read more about that. I've been Googling around. It's going to take some time for it to voyage over here probably. But yeah, Haruto Watanabe is alive, everyone. And finally, before we get into a couple of last comments and then what we're playing, I wanted to ask you guys what you thought about this new Bandai Namco logo. I think it sucks.
Let me see.
Down.
Bad.
Oh, ew. Yeah, that's awful.
So Japanese publisher Bandai Namco has changed their logo from I don't know, it's kind of vanilla, but normal orange, red, white. People know it. Little egg orb thing.
Yeah.
And then the name. And so that now they've made it what is basically like a word bubble with Bandai Namco in black with the word bubble pink. And it says fun for all into the future. I mean, everything about that sucks. I don't, they didn't need to do this. Now, obviously Bandai was its own company. Namco was its own company. They merged, and Namco, I mean, I love Namco, but I don't understand this one. What do you think, Chris? You're not feeling it?
No, this is gross. Like you're right about their old logo. It's not particularly like, it's not like a great logo. It looks like a mess kind of that like they just sort of threw together. It looks like MasterCard almost, but I don't know. I don't like this whole minimalist thing that every company seems to be doing. It's like, how do we simplify McDonald's? And then like they just write M in like Arial font, and it's just like look at how sophisticated we are because we've sapped all creativity and fun from our creative process. It just I don't like this at all. It's bland. It doesn't even really. This feels like a hospital almost, or like some like a clinic.
Yeah, it does, like a 24-hour pharmacy sign or something.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's a pharmacy sign. Bandai Namco, come get your Xanax.
It's fun for the future, Chris. Okay,
fun for all. What I mean. Into the future.
Oh, fun for all. Is that what it says?
Fun for all into the future.
Into the future. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Which is also the most psychotic underlining text you could possibly have for anything.
It's bad.
Fun for all into the future. It's authoritarian almost.
Yeah, like you all fun for all into. So, Dustin, not feeling it?
Yeah,
you and I will see this logo more than Chris, I think. But yeah, I'm interested to see where this one's going to pop up first.
Well, yeah, Chris mentioned the oversimplification of logos. There's actually a YouTuber I really like named Solar Sands. He has a video called "What on Earth is Going On with Simplified Logos?"
Oh, that sounds awesome.
It makes sense because, like, you think of Apple, the original iPhone, how it was like, oh, here's the notepad, and it literally like looks like a notepad, and it's got the little leather or whatever. Like it's like very realistic. And then we shifted towards the simplified look, which I like simplified logos. I like the flat colors. I'm into that, but you can definitely take it too far. And I just the thing with the Bandai Namco logo is that it's like, is this supposed to be a speech bubble? Is it? I just don't. It loses all character to it. Like, think of like the logo. I don't know. Like, I could spot the current Bandai Namco logo from like if I'm say you're in a convention hall. I could if I see it, I'm instantly gonna see that from super far away and be like, this is just completely forgettable.
It looks like the Polygon logo almost, kind of, or it reminds me of like a Games Press like website or something. Yeah. Like there's it's something so unfun about it, and I'm kind of familiar with it. Like I remember like it was all over the Dragon Ball Z games, like the Budokai games. I'm pretty sure and I remember seeing it all the time. I would feel so sad to see this. I have a theory that I think they're simplifying logos so it's like more easily readable. You know how that you know how they're working on that technology that like translates text on signs through like video cameras and shit?
Yeah.
I feel like it's like almost like that, where it's like trying to simplify it for AI translation purposes.
Could be.
I wouldn't be surprised, but this fucking sucks.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's true that the first logo wasn't very good either, like the yellow and the red overlap and make the orange and all of that, but it's, I don't know. It is what it is. It doesn't matter. What I would have liked to see is Bandai Namco, I don't mind them changing the logo, but make a logo with no words in it. And then you can put it underneath if you want, but make just what is Bandai Namco in an image? I would like to see something more like that, but alas. All right, a couple letters here. Crave Snow wrote in and said, CDC, after the episode last week, we were talking about Kepler Interactive, the indie collective that we were really impressed with. They announced that they got $120 million in funding from China's NetEase. Ooh. I assume games funded by Tencent and NetEase will abide by China's new game bans, like same-sex relationships, lack of choice, and all that. Can't imagine devs making gay characters and then editing them out in a Chinese version. Yeah, I mean, I'm totally not interested in Kepler Interactive anymore. That lasted about a week. But what is the point of making a collective with indie developers from all over the world if you're going to take Chinese money? I don't get it. I just don't understand. You guys all, what did you do? What was even the point of? You all conceded your own freedom to each other and then to a Chinese corporation voluntarily. Very weird.
Oh, God.
Basil Frank wrote in and said, or Basil, hey boys, just a quick one. Please tell me I'm not the only one eating warm cereal. As in pouring milk into a bowl of cereal and heating it up in the microwave for a minute or two. It's normal, right? My girlfriend thinks I'm a psychopath for doing it. Keep well, gents, and stay sanitized, Chris.
I'm sorry.
You couldn't even get past the source. Yeah.
You were like, that was such a natural. That was such a natural. Like, I actually lost control of myself for a second. That is genuinely Basil. Bad. Whatever the hell. Franklin, this is the most insane thing I think I have heard this year. Like, actually for real. And it's been quite a year. You know, I don't know if you heard about, like, you know, the disease that destroyed half the world. But this is genuinely like one of the most insane. I can't even imagine what that sensation is. You know? Like the sensation of like, ooh, you know, Tricks or like Captain Crunch, but it's scalding. That is such an alien texture to me that I can't even visualize it in my own head. And that makes me angry as well. But this is not okay. Your girlfriend is absolutely correct. The fact that she is your girlfriend is astounding.
Yeah, leave this man.
Like this is like the biggest red flag I've ever seen. Like, I can't with this. I'm sorry.
I loved your exasperation 5 words into that. That was fucking awesome. Dustin, is he crazy?
Oh yeah, definitely. We can't be having like hot cereal. When I think of hot cereal, sometimes people refer to oatmeal as a hot cereal.
That's what I was thinking at first, but he doesn't mean it this way, or he wouldn't be writing
No.
it. He doesn't mean like cream of wheat or some shit, or he wouldn't be writing it. Because no one eats cream of wheat cold.
No, yeah, we can't have this, quite simply. The heating of the milk. I find like the cold milk like refreshing. Like maybe you wake up, your mouth's a little dry or whatever. Nice cool milk on the cereal. That's fantastic.
From the teat of the cow.
Yeah, but
right from the cow's teat.
Well, wouldn't it be warm from the cow's teat?
Yeah,
if you did that.
That's true. That would be warm.
Anyway, yeah, no, heating up in the microwave. I also just don't like warm.
What
like the thought of warm milk.
Well, we put some milk in a bottle for you, Basil. Yeah, I just no. Basil, do you squirt a little bit on your wrist to make sure you don't burn yourself before you eat it?
This is the most not okay thing that anybody has ever done.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's up there. It's like Holocaust, 9/11.
Yeah.
Heating up milk.
You're definitely worse than. It's definitely like below 9/11, above Bernie Madoff.
Yeah, right. Holocaust, 9/11, heating up your cereal in the microwave, Bernie Madoff, Casey Anthony. That's
right.
Oh.
All right. God damn it.
All right. And one more here. This one's funny. The Assassin AK-47 wrote in and said, hello, CDC. Really curious to hear your thoughts on this. If you just so happen to gain 1 inch in height overnight, how long would it take you to notice? I think I would notice immediately, but my friend says he wouldn't notice for months. I think he is crazy because my house is catered to my height, so I will know if I can reach something easier. What say you boys? Cater your height. Like a little hobbit hovel?
Yeah.
I feel like you would notice right away. Chris, what would you say?
I feel like, yeah.
Your body would feel different.
Well, you're not only that, but like I feel like even just the second you, not even necessarily the second you wake up, but the second you get dressed, you're gonna notice that's like, oh, over one night, none of my clothes fit me the same way that they always have. Like I'm not somebody who goes out and buys like new clothes all the time, so I've had like a similar wardrobe for quite some time, and I've grown fairly fairly familiar with how everything fits me. So the second I put on a t-shirt that I've worn for years and suddenly it's like a little bit tighter, or like I put on pants and suddenly they're like a little bit shorter, I'm going to notice that. My shoes, like, cause you figure like you figure every part of like with 1 inch that's like distributed at least like probably like a little bit everywhere.
Right. I
So you're
agree with
gonna,
you.
you know what I mean? Like you're gonna notice.
Yeah, like you're blowing yourself up from like in Adobe Photoshop from 100% to 102%. You know, something like that.
And you're gonna notice that.
Yeah, I think so too. But Dustin, what do you know what came into my
I don't
mind for
agree.
this? Okay, because I was thinking of the movie Big, right? Now that's an extreme version of this where Tom Hanks wakes up and he's, not a kid anymore or whatever. I just feel like it's what Chris said. I think he's right. Like everything, or I'm sorry, what the listener or the listener said was everything is set up so that an inch off is like we have the new dog and we put like her dog crate by the stairs and I run into it constantly because I'm like, oh, I forgot that this is here. So anyway, I'm going on and on. What do you think?
So I actually thought of this. Well, this is related to something that happened to me recently. I recently grew an inch overnight. I recently wore dress shoes that are definitely like thicker soles than
Platform
the current.
shoe. Yeah.
They have like the taller back.
Mhm.
And you know what? So let's say I was about an inch taller wearing those shoes. I did not notice. I didn't think, oh, I'm taller now that I'm in these shoes. I don't feel different with my shoes off or on. And surely that's about an inch. So maybe, okay, the question is it, how is the inch distributed throughout the body?
That's what Chris was saying. We don't really know. We don't really have all the information.
Well, here's the thing. You are an inch taller, and whatever percentage that would like however that would work as to how that's distributed through the rest of your body is how it would be. So you would be like an inch taller, and your, I don't know, maybe your hands would be like a little bit like further away. Or maybe you'd be like, it would have to be, because it'd be weird if you just got like is the implication that your soles are just like really thick on your feet? Like
these monster feet.
Yeah,
that can't be the implication. So the implication must be that you are scaled up to the point where you are taller by an inch.
Right.
Which I think you would notice. It's different than wearing shoes that make you taller because your whole body is still the same scale. Like you've not changed at all. You're just wearing shoes that kind of put you forward an inch. But the second you like wake up and you go to the bathroom and like, oh, weird. Like you begin to notice something is off. Like you could see more of yourself in the mirror or something. Or like, hey, weird, I have to adjust my mic a little bit. Or like just something would be off about every single thing that you do.
Would you notice when you go to the bathroom?
Something's off about every single thing I do, by the way. Dustin, yeah.
I was just going to say, we're talking about growing an inch throughout the body. Let's, like you said, Photoshop expanding. Does that, would your dick grow with it? Or, because if you grew then an inch tall, maybe it would, then the ratio would be off.
You sound desperate.
It might be thicker.
Oh.
Yeah.
Displacement. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it would be longer though. I don't know if that's how that works. Anyway.
Let's move on.
Video games, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Whatever you want, man. As many of you know, I'm a fan of personal finance. Yes, we all love money, of course, but what I mean is I like the art, the science, the philosophy behind saving and investing and everything else. But before you can get into all of that, you've got to start small and get yourself responsibly established. And the best way to start getting your financial life in order is with a bank account. Thing is, if you're working with a lower income or have a lot of bills drawing money out of your account regularly, you may not be the right customer for a traditional bank that's going to establish account minimums and nail you with fees. With Chime, the award-winning app and debit card, you can avoid dreaded fees, since avoiding fees is what Chime specializes in. Indeed, in 2019, traditional banks took a staggering $11 billion out of the pockets of consumers. But Chime has saved its own members nearly that much in dodged overdraft fees during its entire existence. With Chime, a slight overdraft won't mean calamity. Eligible members can overdraft up to $200 with no fees. And millions of Americans are already using Chime, so you're joining a sizable group of people already experiencing a new, more mobile, and more modern brand of banking. Signing up for Chime only takes 2 minutes, and it doesn't affect your credit score. So get started today at chime.com/sacred. That's chime.com/SACRED. Again, to responsibly manage and maintain the money you work so hard for, Sign up for Chime at chime.com/sacred. Banking services provided by and debit card issued by the Bancorp Bank or Stride Bank NA, members FDIC. SpotMe eligibility requirements apply. Overdraft only applies to debit card purchases and cash withdrawals. Limits start at $20 and may be increased up to $200 by Chime. Chime member overdraft fee savings based on eligible members' use of SpotMe versus $33 average overdraft fee. Overdraft fee data based on Bankrate checking account survey and CRL June 2020 overdraft fees report. All right, let's get into what we're playing here now. I want to organize this by going to Chris first, then Dustin, then me, because I think we can connect these games. So, Chris, let's start with Alan Wake first, and then talk about Death Stranding. Really interested to hear your thoughts. Alan Wake Remastered just came in at PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and PC. I bought it and downloaded it, but I don't know when the hell I'm going to get to it. What do you think?
Yeah, Alan Wake Remastered. Alan Wake, it's a remastered version of obviously Remedy's I think 2009 or 2010, right?
Yeah, I think it's 2009.
Yeah, if I'm wrong,
I'll
please
look
correct me, but but it's just an up-res.
Oh no, 2010, May 2010, sorry.
Oh yeah, 2010. All right, cool. So it's just that again, it runs a lot smoother. I love Alan Wake, so I'm incredibly biased. I'm having a really good time with it. It feels really cool. I love the tone. I love these, the performances. I love the weird tone of like Remedy's writing, especially around that time where it was just kind of like still, a little bit. It wasn't quite as out there as like Control is. It's still fairly contemporary and like fairly like, reined in, but you could tell like where the seams are and like how the writing is like very just kind of out of place in certain key areas, and it almost makes it kind of shine a little bit brighter in those areas because it's in such a relatively standard story. Like, a writer like Stephen King style writer goes on a retreat to Maine. It's a fairly standard setup, but it's done in like a really fun Remedy way, and it controls a lot better than I expected it to. Like, I don't know why games from that era I feel like have like are really hit or miss with controls, but Alan Wake feels pretty good to play, like even aiming and shooting with like the flashlight to weaken enemies and like the bullets to do damage. It feels really cool. You don't have to be super precise. There's a single player game. There's tons of aim assist, but it's really satisfying to play through. One thing I have noticed though is that while the game runs super smoothly, I don't think they went back and re-rendered the cutscenes. So the cutscenes are at like, whenever it cuts to like a pre-rendered cinematic, it's a little bit like jarring because it looks worse than the game does now. And it's like at like I think it's at 30 frames, the cutscene. So like it's a little jarring in that way. It's not the best remaster of a game I've seen. It's definitely, I would argue, probably on the lower end as far as quality goes. It's not, there's not a lot of care in making sure the cutscenes are at parity with the game. There's not a lot of care in the way certain things flow. But that said, Alan Wake is still really good. So even with those caveats, I would still say this is definitely something that people should check out. I get if it's like, maybe if it's too much money for like an old game, you could wait. You wouldn't be doing yourself that much of a disservice, but I would recommend everybody play Alan Wake just because it's really cool and really weird and enjoyable.
I'm interested to hear that because I was reading a piece on Games Industry that was an interview with some people at Remedy. It was actually really fascinating because they talked about how they, as we discussed last week, how they got the IP back. And it was in 2019, they said that they started remastering the game. And it's like, wow, that's a pretty long remaster, dude. And to hear that it wasn't totally executed right is surprising and disappointing. But I was reminded of two other things in that article. Number one, the Epic published the remaster, and Remedy has a deal for another game with them that apparently is in the Alan Wake universe. And I think a lot of people are assuming that it's Alan Wake 2. So there's that. And the other thing I forgot, and Chris, you might remember this too, is this game, I had totally forgotten about this because I just haven't thought of Alan Wake very, very much. This game was in development for like 7 years. I had totally forgotten about that. Like it took forever for Alan Wake to come out.
It was from Max Payne 2 to whenever Alan Wake.
Yeah, 2003, I think, to 2010. And I think it was Sam Lake that said in the interview, he's like, there are people at Remedy that literally worked on the game the entire time. Like not everyone, but there were people that literally worked on it for all 7 years. I was like, oh my God.
That's it's crazy.
Yeah, it's truly nuts. So
but I would say, the gameplay of it is executed very well. It's just those weird moments in cutscenes that kind of take you out of it. That's like, I wish they could have smoothed out. Even just like a little bit of like AI interpolation probably would have helped, just because it does feel a little jarring going from. It's funny though, because when you look at it as a video game, it's funny to see like the game running no problem, looking fantastic, and then it cuts to this thing that looks so much worse, even though back then that looked better.
Yeah, it's
like,
come a long way. It's a great point.
It's kind of cool from that perspective. But Alan Wake is still really cool. I really like it. I forgot that Sam Lake is in like the end of the first episode. He's on like the cover of some book, and the guy's like, "I hate this guy's smug face."
Oh, that's awesome.
It's really, there's a lot of, if you've played Remedy games, you'll get a lot of you'll get plenty of kicks out of it, I think.
And then it says here you're playing Death Stranded Director's Cut as well. How are you enjoying your return to the U.S.?
Yeah, the decimated U.S. Yeah, I decided kind of on a whim to, and I decided, I'm gonna upgrade to the Director's Cut. I'm gonna play it, just because I've been feeling this weird calling to Death Stranding lately. I don't know what it is, but I felt really compelled to go back to it. And also, I'm playing it with my girlfriend right now. We're handing the controller off because she was like, "Do you think I would like Death Stranding?" I was like, "I don't know. Like, I really don't know. If it's such a weird game to." I was explaining. I was like, "I don't know how to recommend this game to people who I know who play video games all the time. So I don't know if you'd like it." But she's actually been enjoying it, and that's really cool and really surprising, because I know that that's like not everybody's cup of tea, but. It's Death Stranding again. It runs really nice. It looks beautiful. It's such a weird universe that I totally forgot a lot of the little idiosyncrasies. I forgot about like the names that people have. Like, yeah, I'm Die Hard Man, or I'm Dead Man, and I'm Guillermo del Toro, but it's not really me because I can't speak English really this good. There's, now that I've finished it, and now that like I can look at it from the perspective of knowing where everything is going, I'm finding it a lot more engaging. While I feel like the first time there was so much confusion, and I was wondering like how much I had left, and is it going to be this forever? Like when is the game going to open up? And when you finish it and you can look back at it, understanding the rhythm and the cadence of the game, it's actually a lot more enjoyable in my experience the second time through. Because you get to really feel that fun from the experience of actually like climbing these mountains and going through these locales with the understanding of what the game is really trying to do. And I don't know, I did not think I would enjoy it as much the second time, because it did seem like one of those kind of things where it's like, oh, it's an experience. It's like, oh, it's a hiking simulator, and how weird is this? But how many times are you going to really want to do this again? I found much enjoyment in it this time around. I have not gotten to any of the new content, though. I don't know if I've seen any new missions yet. I'm still pretty early on. I'm still in episode 2. But I haven't seen any like new facilities, or I haven't seen these like racetracks or anything. I'm still doing what I did the first time around, but it's running super smooth. It looks really gorgeous, and it's still the same weird game that it was before. And I know Dustin's playing it too.
Yeah. Now, Chris, are you playing on the widescreen mode?
What do you? Oh, like with the black bars?
Yeah, you should.
I should.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's a really, well, you have an OLED. Are you playing it on OLED?
Yeah.
Because if you're playing on OLED, then the black bars are not super noticeable, since it's like inky, zero, infinite contrast or whatever. But also, if you put it on the widescreen mode, you can put it on the quality mode, and it will run at native 4K, basically flawless 60. So think about it. But
yeah, I'll give it a shot. I didn't even know there was an option to play it in widescreen. Is it just like in? This is on the PlayStation 5 that you could do this?
Yeah, it's on the director's cut version, and I think it is like way superior. Like, your field of view is so much wider. You do sacrifice a little that screen real estate, but with a game like this, with like the amazing landscapes and stuff like that, it's really, really been awesome playing it that way. But man, I totally agree with you, Chris, in that I think when I finished Death Stranding in 2019, I thought that is a game that I really, really enjoyed that I don't think I'll ever want to play again. And then I mentioned last week on Sacred that against my better judgment, I couldn't resist starting it again. And I really shouldn't have because I was in the middle of some other games. But this game has really, really sucked me in again. And the second playthrough has been, I feel like, even better than the first one in a lot of ways, mainly in that I'm less afraid of doing certain things. And so I'm pushing the boundaries. Like I'm like loading up. So it's like I'm full, have full packages. I have the bike that is also completely full. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to drive through BT territory. And when I get to the delivery destination, I deliver all this shit. It's going to be amazing. And, so yeah, it's like I'm really using all of the tools available that I just never messed with. I also think that when I played it the first time, I was feeling pressure to finish it out of spoilers. I was just so afraid of getting anything spoiled. So to be able to really enjoy it and play through it, and just I'm already have this idea that I'm like, yeah, I'm going to 5-star my relationship with every location because I'm having so much fun. I'm like building the roads, which I didn't really do much of in the first playthrough. This game is amazing. And I will say, I feel like without a doubt, I can definitively say this is one of the best games from the PS4 generation and now made even better on PS5. This is a landmark masterpiece game that I think, unfortunately, I don't know. I think it can still be a masterpiece without being for everybody.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that goes without saying. I feel like most. Yeah. I feel like most things, like you wouldn't say like, oh, you know what, it was a real masterpiece of a movie. Something that everybody loves. Like, hey, here's Avengers or something. Like Avengers isn't a masterpiece. Like, come on, like it's fun and it's enjoyable and like everybody probably likes it. If you see Avengers, you'll probably like it, but I wouldn't call it a masterpiece.
Yeah, but I'm loving this game. I had to go and I bought this my Fragile Express shirt and I bought like a Kojima production shirt. Which, dude, guys, by the way, look at the back of this shirt. for the audio listeners, I
have a hoodie with that.
Oh, nice, dude. Yeah. I feel like I remember that now, but. I bought a poster too, and unfortunately got crushed in the mail. I'm a little disappointed by that, but oh yeah, I'm having a great time with it. So,
well,
the other game.
Hold on, before you say anything, I just wanted to speak really quickly because you're both talking about not expecting to have played this game again. Obviously, came to PS4 in 2019. We did our spoiler cast, all that, but I think it's important just to remind the audience, and we remind everyone often, although I think people kind of get it now, is that I think it's important that we play what we want to play. If you're attracted to Death Stranding at the sake of Tales of Arise or whatever you were playing, I think that's valid because it's supposed to be enjoyable. Like we want to come to the situation, the conversation with something to say about what we want to play, not feeling the need to play something. So I'm confident we'll get to all of the big games. And you didn't you beat Deathloop and stuff? So like you're way ahead of me. Like and I'll talk about my situation when I get to me, but I just wanted to throw that out there that I think it's perfectly okay to say like, I want to play Death Stranding. I've done that the last 2 weeks plus. I've not played anything that's been released this century. And we'll talk about that. But so
you've played Wild Arms 3 recently, so.
Right. Right. I just spent a bunch of time with ActRaiser, which came out in 1991. So it is what it is. But Dustin, I'm very eager to hear about your time with Castlevania Symphony of the Night, one of the hands down greatest games of all time.
So this, for me, I haven't been playing very many video games on Twitch. Part of it was because I was, as I mentioned earlier, I was really striving to get partnership, and I have less viewers when I play games, which is weird, but I've decided that I just don't care anymore. If I want to enjoy it, I'm going to do what I want to do. Definitely. So I've started for the month of October playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Not every time I stream, but I'm hoping to do it once a week. We're going to play Symphony of the Night. And I've started this game before and never gotten very far. But the fact that I'm playing it on Twitch, I feel like is like the motivating factor. I feel like this game, first of all,
Be very careful with what you're about to say.
Gorgeous.
Good.
Top tier pixel art.
Oh
no
my
doubt.
God. It's I'm only kidding with you, by the way. Yeah, it is one of the most beautiful games ever.
Yeah. Oh, also the soundtrack. There's some songs that sound like, it's weird because you associate like some of the MIDI sounds with like being cheesy, but I'm like, they made it work. Like it sounds awesome. Like
it rocks, dude.
Yeah. So I will say that I'm like, the beginning of this game is frustrating. But and I feel like if you like were to watch my stream at the beginning, I was like really frustrated. And then by the end, I was like, okay, now I kind of understand what's going on. I understand now just how to play, I guess. Not how to play, but like a lot of this game is figuring out how to attack an enemy based on their placement in the level. And so like you'll be like, okay, I'm on this platform. I got to like jump and swing and then go back down while he throws his thing. And also just figuring out like all of the different pickups that you can get and how they'll work against different enemies. So I feel like this game somewhat throws you into the deep end a little bit at the beginning, especially if you die and you have not made a save point, then you will have to restart the beginning of the game, which I think it was just me. I don't know if it was me playing like an idiot, but I just missed one of the early save points. And then I was like, well, guess we're playing the first 15, 20 minutes again.
Yeah. It's important. It's important to save in that game often. Because that to me is what those games are all about, is like, how far can you push it before you find, like, one of the greatest things in those games is like, you're low on energy. You have no idea what's ahead. The save point's kind of far behind you. You think that a save point might be in any of the next rooms, but you don't know. Oh, it's fucking good shit. And you push it and you push it and you push it and you find, and you walk into the coffin room and you're like, oh, and you walk in and press up and the thing turns and you heal. It's awesome. It's an awesome cycle.
You know, Colin, that idea of like seeing how far you can push it, how far you can go, very Dark Souls type feeling.
Yeah, I agree with you there, but not as hard. I mean, Dark Souls is so much harder than Castlevania. You know?
Really?
Oh, I think so.
See,
I think I actually think Symphony of the Night's pretty easy, but I think it's because I play 2D games. You don't play as many 2D games as me. Like, that's where I come from.
Right.
That's the only place where I can be anymore. You know, like, I'm like really struggling in some other places. So yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to play more and update you guys as I go. I feel like I can't make any definitive statements other than fuck the Medusa heads.
Yeah, those classic Castlevania enemies. Yeah.
I hate them. I got stun locked on the, like, you're on the very like right side of the castle. They like stun locked me and just completely obliterated me, and there was nothing I could do.
Yeah, those are like the most notorious. Have you played Castlevania before?
Not extensively.
Yeah, I mean, those are like the famous, like, almost like Goombas in Castlevania.
Right.
Are the Medusa heads? But I'm so glad. Are you playing Castlevania Requiem? Is that where you're playing it?
The one that's on PS4.
Yeah, so the one with Rondo.
It's the PSP port.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, Rondo of Blood, of course. Like, because I love the beginning of Castlevania 2, where you play as Castlevania also, where you play as Richter and all of that. And then you die. You don't have to die, but you die, and then you're like this buffed out Alucard who's like busting into the castle, and then Death comes and takes all your weapons, like all your weapons. It's fucking awesome. I would. That's one thing. I don't need to see this game in 3D, but I would love to see that scene. Him like running up to the castle. He like jumps over the drawbridge as it's being brought up, and then like he's like fucking everything up, and then Death comes and just like removes all the shit. It's really, really neat. I love that game.
Right. Yeah. What's funny, someone helped me in my Twitch chat. They're like, hey, do you want to make the beginning a little easier since you haven't played this game or Castlevania games? You can actually grind when you're like the buffed out Alucard and like grind like 5 or 6 levels out pretty easily, which is just I don't know, maybe that was intentional, maybe not.
Yeah, there are a lot of tricks.
Helped me out a lot.
The other thing I want to ask you is, are you going to beat it all the way? Pardon the pun. You know, there's a fake ending in the game that tricks most people.
Right.
So, do you intend on continuing and beating the other half of the game?
We'll see. Right now I'd like to, unless I get to the end of this and I just hate it and don't want to play anymore. Then
it'd be surprising.
It would surprise me too. So we'll see.
Cool, man. I'm really excited to hear that you're playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and that's one of those games I don't believe in scores anymore. But that's a 10. I mean, that's a 10 to me. No doubt. When we did our thing about like the greatest games of all time, that was one of the things I was gonna bring that game up, but I'm like, it's just not accessible enough.
Right.
All right. As for me, well, I wanted to connect us in some way, Death Stranding to Death Stranding, Castlevania to Castlevania, because I'm playing Castlevania Advanced Collection, and I'm playing. So that's 4 games right now. It's Dracula X plus the 3 Game Boy Advance games. Dracula X was a SNES port of Dracula X from or Rondo of Blood from TurboGrafx. So it's whatever, it doesn't matter. But I'm really enjoying it, and it's funny because you're playing Symphony, and Symphony is 1997. Circle of the Moon, the first Castlevania game on GBA, is a launch game from 2001, and it's funny how I remember Circle of the Moon being like Symphony of the Night, but it's really not. It's much more of a traditional Castlevania game with the trappings of Symphony of the Night. Symphony of the Night's a straight up action RPG. It moves fast, it's kinetic, it's beautiful, and all that kind of stuff. Now, Circle of the Moon is beautiful too. It's a Game Boy game, and it's nice to be able to see it. I was kidding around with someone on Twitter. People will remember that the original Arctic White and Purple Game Boy Advances were not backlit. Castlevania Circle of the Moon was especially dark, like really dark, and people used to have to play it under a lamp. And I remember buying Game Boy Advance the day it came out. Arctic White, got Circle of the Moon and a couple of other games, and I actually got Super Mario Advance that same day, and you can play that fine. And it was this game you just had to play under the lamp. So I just had this really funny remembrance of this game. And I also remember going to Florida with my friend that summer, my friend Bryce, and we stayed at his grandma's. We were like doing some Disney stuff and all this other stuff. And I remember just like obsessing over a GameFAQs map, playing this game at like a kitchen table in the summer of 2001. And I went and found the map, and I was like, oh shit, what a nostalgic thing. But it's a cool thing to play, and I'm having a lot of fun. And Circle of the Moon is way harder than Symphony of the Night, I think, too. And the reason that it's harder is because it feels more like a Castlevania game. Again, that stiff knockback, stiff attacks, dedicated attacks. Like when you attack, you're committed. When you jump, you're committed. There's really like that's Castlevania. Like that's old Castlevania, and that's not the way Symphony of the Night is. Which is why I think it's a little more beloved, and why I think the games are a little better considered as they move forward, especially into the DS later on. And hopefully we'll get a collection of those. So I highly recommend Castlevania Advanced Collection. And then I as I said last week, I playing ActRaiser Renaissance, beat it, so I beat the game last week, and then after that I did this is cool. There's an entire post-game thing that is not in the original game, like an entire new territory, new enemies, all this kind of stuff, and you get the real ending by beating that. So I did that as well and enjoyed that, cleaned up some trophies. There's some really hard, they're not hard, just time-consuming trophies, so I don't think I'm going to get the platinum in that, but I have to say, and I said I would bring this up again, these games are covered in a patina for me of like serendipity, where it's like I needed something to play that to just, we've said before, like you need something to just get you out, get you back into the motion of playing and enjoying. And I've been really busy lately. Like I was traveling for the show. My dad was just here. My best friend was just here. Micah's parents are coming soon. We're just like really busy with all these things, and I've just kind of lost my rhythm. And like Manna from Heaven, Castlevania Advanced Collection, and ActRaiser Renaissance are released the same day, and literally announced the day they're released, the same day, from 2 different publishers that I love, Konami and Square Enix. Enix at the time, of course. And I just couldn't believe that. And it's exactly what the doctor ordered. And though I have this list of games, as I tweeted the other day, I'm like, oh man, I'm really overwhelmed now, because Far Cry 6 and Deathloop and just on and on. There's a lot of stuff. But this is what I needed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to beat Circle of the Moon, and then I'm going to stop. And then I'm going to go play something else. And then I'm going to beat that game, and then I'm going to go back to the Advanced Collection and play Aria of Sorrow, and then go back, and so on and so forth. Actually, I think it's Harmony of Dissonance and then Aria of Sorrow. So shout out to Konami, shout out to Square Enix for giving life to those games again. Wonderful games. I'm especially surprised by the negative reaction to ActRaiser Renaissance. I think people are fucking crazy if they don't understand the beauty of that game. And in fact, Ilya Staroverov wrote in and said, hey dudes, as we know, the games industry is very prone to copying successful trends. Battle Royale is everywhere. We'll get to that shortly. Trying to capture the success began with PUBG and Fortnite soon after. But do any of you have examples of lost genres, games that were original but didn't take off, and thus nobody tried to copy or make more of that style? Have a great one. This is the game. I know I said it last week, but there is nothing like ActRaiser. Nothing. nothing like ActRaiser. And even the sequel to ActRaiser is nothing like ActRaiser. And that's why everyone was so frustrated about it when it came out. I'll never forget that. Everyone fucking hated ActRaiser 2. So no one understood, like, why'd you do this? So yeah, my answer to that, Ilya, is ActRaiser Renaissance. Check it out. It might be a little expensive for your taste right now. I mean, go buy videos, see what you think. But I would check it out if it came out on sale. It's a really nice look into the SNES's early history, and what I would consider one of the very first games on SNES outside of Super Mario World and a couple others that were really worth owning. Because remember, SNES was not great early on, had some good stuff, but we're talking about Pilot Wings and like R-Type and stuff. You can do without those games, but not so much ActRaiser. And then finally, before I move on out of here, Devin Havens just wrote in and said, "What's good, CDC?" Colin, a few episodes back, you mentioned that you started playing SnowRunners, but haven't mentioned it since. Are you still enjoying the life of hauling massive loads up and down mountains, or have you moved on since there are so many other things to play? I haven't even played it. In fact, it's on my console still, but I played it right before I went to the live show, and then I was remarking to Mike at the time, like, I have no idea why I even started this. Like, I don't even know what the point of that was. I had this hunger. I'm like, I'm going to fucking play SnowRunner, you know? And so the answer is no. I know that I'll get to that game because I know that a game like that will speak to me when I have this. Like, I have 20 fucking Sam Harris episodes lined up. Like, SnowRunner will get me through those, no doubt. Dustin, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, maybe you're just not feeling the appeal of the massive loads right now.
Yeah, I don't. You can bring the loads up in me if you want, and then they'll fall back down out of me. Like the truck going out up and down the mountain. It's fucking vulgar. That was truly vulgar. All right.
Wow.
Let's move on to the news. Now, we rarely start the news with a letter from the audience, but I just wanted to start this out because Cole Huskar wrote in and said, "Hi, Senior Moriarty. Just a simple question. Why do you say ellipsis a lot? And what does it mean?" Well, Cole, you could have probably looked this up. But when I say ellipsis, the ellipsis is the 3 dots that you see. Dot, dot, dot. And what that means in grammar, English grammar, as I remind people on occasion, is that it represents a fragment from a quote. So there's usually superfluous, but sometimes not, just information in there. And the dots indicate that you've cut. So when I say blah, 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 ellipsis, blah, 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 what it means is blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah are not connected. There's something in there that I'm not reading. And it's to be honest, to let you know that we're using fragments. So I hope that answers your question, Cole.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the news here, boys. Number 1, with Sony's recent acquisition of the studio Nixes, which specializes entirely in bringing games to PC, the PlayStation brand has undoubtedly put its cards on the table when it comes to computers. They're bringing many more games to the platform, an unusual step for Sony until recent years. You'll recall that select second-party games have migrated over the last few years: Journey, Helldivers, Heavy Rain, and more. And we've now gotten into the realm of the big second-party games like Death Stranding and first-party offerings like Horizon Zero Dawn and Days Gone. As that trend continues, however, we're left wondering, what's the plan? One of the people responsible for this strategy, ex-PlayStation CEO Shawn Layden, recently spoke out about just this. On the What's Up PlayStation show, as relayed by website Video Games Chronicle, Layden had the following to say about PlayStation on PC, quote, "The idea of going to PC, and I don't think you'll ever see PlayStation do a day and date with PC, but as you know, you never say never. But the strategy as we were developing it when I was there was that we need to go out to where these new customers are, these new fans could be. We need to go to where they are because they've decided not to come to my house. So I've got to go to their house now. And what's the best way to go to their house? Why don't I take one of our top selling games, which has already blown up the marketplace? It's already been out there for 18 months or 24 months. There's no real retail activity against that title. I'm not reading off one sale for another and bring that to a personal computer platform and let them have an idea. You guys choose not to come to PlayStation, but let me show you what you're missing. Ellipsis. It's a way to outreach. That's how I see it. Trying to get people that the platform doesn't currently speak to." End quote. Sorry, I butchered that a little bit. And I wanted to say, as I mentioned earlier, that aforementioned GamesIndustry.biz interview, again, Jim Ryan, "I would love a world where our hundreds of millions enjoy our games." That's why I wanted to bring this up, and we'll start with you, Dustin. Jim Ryan, in his interview on GamesIndustry.biz, which is a compliment to, and not a compliment like a nice thing, but a compliment to this news story, is he says he says basically, and I'm not saying verbatim, but this is what he says. We have big games that sell 10 or 20 million copies, like our biggest games. Why can't they sell hundreds of millions of copies? And there's only one way that's going to happen. So I wonder if they're starting to get people ready for a different kind of future. But Shawn Layden makes it seem like, at least when he was there strategizing, the intent is not the Microsoft day and date thing, which I will say reeked of desperation when Microsoft was doing it. It no longer reeks of desperation because they have a more unified, successful ecosystem now that has those expectations. But I feel like that happened originally because of those desperate measures that needed to be taken. Sony doesn't have to take those desperate measures right now, so that's a little bit different. But anyway, I'm rambling. Dustin,
Right.
what do you have to say?
I mean, hearing him say this is a little bit validating, at least I feel like for us on this show, because this is exactly what we've been saying over and over. And it's funny just because I've seen some feedback where people say, oh, well, what's the point of PlayStation if they're going to eventually release these PC games at the same time? Like, they're never going to do that. I mean, it's possible. It'd be a very different strategy. And what Shawn Layden laid out here is the strategy that we've been saying. And it makes complete sense, right? Like, a lot of PC gamers are just that, in that they play games on PC and they do not buy consoles. And that's what Shawn was saying. They don't want to come to your house. So you got to meet them where they are and be like, hey, here's what we have to offer. Maybe it entices them to buy a PlayStation 5. And if not, maybe they buy the game anyway. They buy a game that's 3 or 4 years old for 40 or 50 bucks, right? Like, either way, Sony wins. It's a win-win situation. I can't think of any loss behind this. Again, Shawn brings up the idea of these are games that are no longer really moving units in retail. So the only people that would be disappointed by these games going to PlayStation are the people that feel the need to defend Sony like it's some sort of weird sports team. Like, they're not thinking about that at all. They're thinking about the bottom line. So it's exciting. I think this is great. We've mentioned in the past, like, PC is a platform, which consoles have caught up to this, thank goodness. But PC is the platform where something can truly live forever. And so I'm happy to see that with PlayStation games.
Yeah, extremely well said. And I think they're just getting their ducks in a row. I think Nix's was a strange acquisition just because they had a relationship with Square Enix. They had no relationship really with Sony, but Sony saw what time it was and I think made the wise decision. That's why I think, even though, as I reported and talked about, I think with our fans on Discord and whatnot, Bluepoint, I was surprised, as we discussed on the show last week, indeed, that they are not just being a remake studio, because I just thought that was another part of the situation. Instead, it appears that they're they're going to they're re-releasing Bloodborne on PS5, as I understand it, but we're going to get a sequel to Bloodborne, as I have heard, out of them after that. So they're going to move on to new games. But I think that otherwise Sony is getting their ducks in a row. Chris, what do you think about this? I agree with Dustin too. We have been saying this. I didn't want to pat myself on the back too much, although I like to do that once in a while, more often than once in a while, indeed. But
yeah,
I do suspect that this isn't going to sit right with the console loyalists, but they have to understand that Sony needs to make money to make games. And I have an affinity for PlayStation's games. I don't care if the games play on my fucking ring light. Like the brand, in other words, is not the console. The console is the conduit by which I play the brand. So if the brand expands in other places, I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. That's exactly why I also say that Game Pass on PlayStation makes sense for the exact same reason. So what do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I will pat us on the back. We've been saying this exact thing for the entire, like, literally the entire time. we specified exactly too that the main motivation is because these games aren't moving units, and we were just totally right. So obviously, we're going to take credit for that.
Yes,
but yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm sure this won't sit right with certain people, but like, I don't know. To me, it's like the types of people who that will be negatively affected by this news are the kinds of people that you don't want to appease anyway. They're not really interested in games as a medium only so much as they're interested in how it defines their personality. And I think that that's like a really weird it's just a really weird subsection of players that kind of identify themselves by the machines that they play, or like you know it- it- feel this weird personal offense that a game that they really enjoy is going to be enjoyed by people who aren't them or who haven't contributed to the ecosystem, whatever that means. I just saw it's funny because I just saw like a screenshot of a tweet the other day of somebody adding Phil Spencer on Twitter, and he was like, I just saw the Quantum Break coming to PC, canceled my pre-order, you should have been more transparent. And Phil Spencer was like, you cancel the pre-order to a game you were excited to play because other people can play it elsewhere? And that was it. There was no response.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just like, what is... I will never understand the gatekeeping mentality. Like, I even understood it. I understand it to some degree with, like, the day and date. Even though, even then, I don't really agree with it because, like, I just don't... I don't really care what's good for Microsoft's console sales as long as, like, they continue to make good shit, and as long as Sony continues to make good shit. That's what we're interested in. Continuing to get good content. And the best way to get good content continuously is to ensure that that good content is rewarded with money.
Yeah.
And you kind of, I understand the importance of having exclusives to move units, but after a certain amount of time, I mean, holy shit, do you really care if Uncharted 4 comes to PC? Do you really care if, like, Bloodborne comes to the Switch or something?
Right.
Like, do you really care? Do you actually care? You can't possibly. I really don't think people actually care about it. I think it's them trying to find something to care about and assuming that that's worthy enough. Like, I cannot justify in my own head why anyone would ever be negatively affected by the chance of somebody else who doesn't own their piece of plastic playing something that they enjoy. It does not compute with me at all.
No. Well said. I'm totally against the fanboyishness and the fucking nonsense. And as I've said ad nauseum on our own show, it is financially unreasonable and, of course, realistically unreasonable to assume this. But imagine a myopic situation in which I was the only person that played PlayStation and all of the PlayStation games were just for me, right? Like, that wouldn't affect me in a negative way, right? Like,
yeah, because you'd still get them.
Right, because I'm playing them. That's the whole point. It doesn't matter. And
you're literally,
I think,
it's a net zero effect on you, literally.
Right, totally neutral. And I think Vita was really the proof to people that they needed that, like, listen, I don't care how many people play it. I still play the Vita. I might be one of a few, like 10,000 people that even play it anymore, So it's about enjoying what you want, where you want, and also realizing that the financial reality is, again, to your point, Dustin, far greater than the really brain dead sports, team mentality. And I think the sports team mentality in sports is pretty brain dead too. And I say that as a huge sports fan. It's very volatile. It's very vitriolic. It's useless. It's stupid.
It's very weird that there are riots after sports games when they
win. Yeah. I lived in Boston during several riots when the Patriots and the Red Sox won, and that's a horrible thing. Anyone getting hurt or their property being destroyed, but it's so strange that we would want that in our industry as if it makes us look good or gives us some sort of validity. It's quite the opposite. It's quite the contrary. People like that and people that feel that way about games make everyone look bad. And the people that make games hate those people. That's another thing that everyone has to understand. Like, I think that, like, some console fanboy warriors like think like, oh, it's Sony Santa Monica, like they love us. Like, they hate you. Like, they don't give a fuck about you. I've heard time and time again, including in on the record interviews, saying like, I wish that our game could be on other consoles because we made it and we want other people to play it, but that's not the financial reality. So the PC is a stepping stone to getting where we want to be as PlayStation fans, I think, which is like a robust, high quality AAA family, AAA family that makes great games. And if the money comes from Peter or Paul, it doesn't matter to them. So get with it.
It's kind of amazing that we have those sports riots like all the time. And then, like, GTA goes on sale and suddenly there's like a million news reports about how dangerous it is.
Yeah, it's total. It's
so wild.
Violence is generally, I think, abhorrent. I said, remember when that guy Richard Spencer, the Nazi, got punched in the face? And I was like, I remember saying at the time, I'm like, man, this is, that meme of like the domino and then the big domino.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was thinking like punch Richard Spencer in the face is like the little domino. And then the big domino is like today, where like everything is just like normalized. Like that was normalized. Everything's normalized. Like shitty behavior, violence, whatever. And for stupid reasons, right? Like
Sonic.
I mean, I'm not going to, I don't want to say anything. They're going to clip me and put me on the Sonic the Hedgehog Twitter account, which is my greatest fear in the world. They're going to get me one day. I know it.
Yeah.
Number 2, among rumors circulating that console shortages will persist through 2022 comes some good news. Finally, AMD, the company behind PlayStation 5's CPU and GPU chipsets and other important components, is expecting things to normalize in about a year's time, at least somewhat. According to CNBC, AMD is worth 120% more now than it was during the beginning of COVID. And it's all because demand for their technologies has far, far outpaced supply. There are a ton of victims to these endemic shortages like cars, appliances, and more, but game console supply has been unable to meet demand in any way, largely because of AMD. According to CNBC, AMD CEO Lisa Su noted, quote, the global chip shortage will become less severe in the second half of 2022, end quote, with Q1 and Q2 2022 experiencing so-called tight supplies. She said in part, quote, we've always gone through cycles of ups and downs where demand has exceeded supply or vice versa. This time it's different. It might take, 18 to 24 months to put on a new plant, and in some cases even longer than that. These investments were started perhaps a year ago. The pandemic has just taken demand to a new level, end quote. While this is bad news in the short term, PlayStation 5 will continue to be very hard to find for perhaps the next 10 months or so. It's good news for other reasons. First, we know that AMD has made the necessary investments to better meet demand, as have many other companies, but in thinking long term, this is also important for 2 other machines. One is confirmed and the other inevitable. PSVR 2 and PlayStation 5 Pro. PSVR 2 is set for 2022, likely in the fall, and will hopefully not be constrained, while PS5 Pro has yet to be announced or confirmed, but reliable sources have pegged it for 2023. That, of course, are reliable sources. Moore's Law. We appreciate him for that. So, Dustin, things seem to be getting a little bit better, but Casey Weinman wrote in and said, hey, boys, first-time supporter listening since episode 1 and all that jazz. With both the PS5 and Series X still near impossible to get your hands on almost a year later, how long do you think until these consoles are more easily obtainable? When will people be able to walk into their local stores and buy one off the shelves? Microsoft has already come out and said their consoles will have a shortage in 2022. Are scalpers to blame? Is the chip shortage to blame? Both. Have a great day, gentlemen. Scalpers are... I don't know, man. I don't know how many... I don't even want to talk about scalpers anymore. Right. Certainly scalpers are taking the consoles and reselling them, but this is a real supply problem now. And so anyway, my answer is I don't think you're going to see anything until this time next year. I think Dagan, my brother, said that they were selling PS5s in his Best Buy or something randomly when he was there. So, but I think that's like a random happenstance.
Right.
What do you make of this?
Yeah. To be honest, like I feel like the 3 of us have no background knowledge on when these could possibly be available. This is definitely like someone who's more familiar with like the chip industry. But I mean, we can read reports like this and try to get an idea of when these things will get better. Like you said, they're making the proper investments. They can't just build a new factory to make more chips overnight. This is like many $1 million, probably like the equipment alone is probably 10, 20, 30, many millions. How about that? Like for just the equipment, let alone the facility.
These places are probably hundreds of millions of dollars each.
Hundreds of millions for just the machines that make the chips. So it'll be a while, but it's funny you mentioned the stock of AMD. When I first got Robinhood on my phone, I bought just 2 shares of AMD for $30 a piece. And I've made a considerable profit on not a lot, but I've made $150 so far.
Not bad.
Yeah. So that was just like me like messing around like, oh, how does this work? Okay, AMD's got some cool processors coming out. I'm going to buy 2 of those just for fun. So
yeah.
But yeah, AMD, man, they're really on top. Really even beating out Intel right now, but that's neither here nor there.
What do you make of this, Chris? Are you are people in your life anecdotally being able to find these machines? I mean, people in my life still can't find these things at all.
I don't know many people who are looking because most of the people I know have managed to get their hands on. Most of the people that I know who are trying to find it have their hands on it. But also, like, most people I know who want to get their hands on it are kind of like industry people or like content creator people who, you know, let's be real, they have a higher chance of getting these things.
Sure.
Like they have the disposable income to even just like throw it at a scalper and have it not be a huge deal. So, but yeah, I mean, even when I got mine, I had to break into a building
I forgot about that.
to get my PS5 out of somebody else's building. So I'm sure it's unfortunate, but I don't know. I think if the question is like, you know, how long before these consoles are more easily obtainable? I'd say like, you know, definitely not before Tuesday. You know.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably right.
I would bet a lot of money.
Yeah, I think you'd probably be right about that. But we'll find out. I mean, I'm feeling good though. It's not going to be before Tuesday. It's not going to be before next Tuesday or Christmas, Black Friday, anything like that. But it's getting better, and I looked, and scalped prices are going down. I still feel, I mean, here's my honest answer to this at this point about people not being able to find a PS5. It's a $500 machine. How much is your time worth? Jesus God. Like, you could get one for like $650 right now. If it's that important to you, go buy it for $650. If you can't afford it at $650, you can't afford it at $500. That is my feedback. Now, I'm not telling you have to do that. I'm the one who's been telling you over and over again, you don't need a PS5. But if you feel like you really need one, have some respect for yourself and your time. Some people look at it as a game, but I'm telling you guys, if you went and looked, like some of you that are looking and looking and looking, you're losing money by doing that. Just buy one on eBay or roll the dice. But
it's also not as interesting a story as you probably think it's going to be. Like, I looked on 40 different sites every single day for a year and a half, and then I finally got it. It's not, you know, it's not. That's not like dinner conversation, really. You know, you're not gonna come out of it with a story,
right? That's a good point. Also,
anything.
You're gonna. I mean, no offense, I love the PS5. I think it's awesome, but you're gonna get it and be like, this is what I fucking waited a year for and like obsessed over. Is this? I'm telling you, that's what's gonna happen. Like, you're building, like the hunt for this thing is gonna build it up so much. I think that happened to Wii, to be honest. I think Wii was like hyped to such a degree. We have to acknowledge, like, Wii kind of died. It sold a shit ton of units and stayed around for a while, but after like 2009, no one cared about the Wii, right? Because I think like it was over for the Wii. Like, everyone's like, oh, and I think a lot of that had to do with the buildup of like, can't find one, it's awesome. Can't find one, it's awesome. And then you get it, and you're like, this thing sucks. I mean, you know, in hindsight, that's the way I felt. I mean, I liked it at first. And then I was lying to myself about the Wii for a long time, but that was that deep Nintendo fanboy shit in my heart.
Yeah,
which still kind of percolates there.
I remember thinking it was like neat, and I was like, oh, cool, like this is, you know, novel. And then I played it. I think I played one round of Wii Bowling, and I think I mess around with the Wii Fit that my mom got, and I was like, okay. And then I never played it again.
Yeah,
actually, for like 2008 was the first and last time I played the Wii. And then actually that's not true, because I tried it again in 2011 just to see if, like, wait a minute, can you look up porn on this thing? And you can.
Nice.
So
in 480.
Yeah,
it's
just 480p porn with like the little bubbly Nintendo design. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. But
yeah, like with the eShop song in the background. Yeah, that would. So I don't think I've actually played a Wii game probably since like a Wii game since Zack and Wiki probably was the last one I bought, and that was in 2007, I want to say. But Virtual Console I played a lot on Wii. And of course, all those games are just locked on that Wii forever. And so when that goes away, all those games will go away too. Thanks, Nintendo. Number 3, Konami is waking up. And while the results may be disastrous, they may be glorious too. This is a 2-part story, so let's start with the bigger half first. According to sources speaking to Video Games Chronicle, quote, Konami is set to ramp up its premium game development with new installments and remakes for its biggest franchises, including Metal Gear and Castlevania, end quote. According to VGC, Castlevania will go first, and it's in development internally at Konami Japan. Metal Gear Solid, on the other hand, is indeed springing to life, not from Bluepoint, according to VGC, but from a completely random source, the studio Virtuous. Virtuous is a mega company headquartered in Singapore and with more than a dozen global offices. The corporation employs 2,500 people, and they do a ton of largely uncredited support work for many, many games. Note that the initiative didn't announce that they were working with Virtuous. Just a little joke. All right. They're also still privately held. Konami has apparently gone to them to remake not the original Metal Gear Solid, but rather PlayStation 2's Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, which launched in 2004. Finally, we arrive at Silent Hill. It appears that there are at least 2 games in development here, but possibly even 3, with Bloober Team known to be working on 1. Compelling rumors, of course, persist that Sony is collaborating with Konami on another one of these with Hideo Kojima. It's noted in VGC's piece, and this is new news to me, that Supermassive Games pitched Konami on a Silent Hill game, which they turned down. They typically turn down all external pitches, but, quote, following the disappointing performance of recent in-house titles Metal Gear Survive and Contra Rogue Core, VGC's sources say the company has become more willing to contract outside studios for its major franchises, end quote. And they're doing just that, with Konami holding a so-called action and shooting game contest that tasks developers to pitch Konami on how they'd handle certain IP. Gradius, Star Soldier, Twin Bee, Goemon, etc. are others in the mix. They're not giving anyone Castlevania or anything like that, which is disappointing. And actually, my studio, Lilymo, we were talking behind the scenes. We're like, should we try to do Gradius? Because Habroxia and Habroxia 2 are Gradius games. So, but then it's for Japan only, so we can't do it. Chris, let's go to you first. There's some interesting stuff here about Konami and them reviving themselves. So the big rumors again is that Castlevania internally developed Metal Gear Solid is being developed. Metal Gear Solid 3 is being developed by Virtuous. And then we have the report that they're disappointed with their internal games. Both those games are bad. I bought them both for some reason, but they were both bad. And that they're now offering Japanese, I guess, indies the ample opportunity to pitch. What do you make of this?
I don't know. Like the premise of Metal Gear Solid 3, that is because didn't they have like a pachinko machine where they remade?
They did,
and it was like a whole.
People were so mad about that because they're like, you guys literally re-rendered all this and shit for like cutscenes on a pachinko machine.
It is really it is really depressing, but I don't know. Like, I feel like is the implication here that they are remaking Metal Gear Solid 3? Is that the implication? Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, I think so the original rumor was Metal Gear Solid 1 was coming. Apparently not that. So now it's going to be Metal Gear Solid 3 by itself. Which is weird. I think it's weird.
Yeah.
That is VGC does point out that game is the fan favorite in the series, and I understand that, but I don't know, like, why would you got to go back and do the original one, man? At least port the Silicon Knights one, right, from GameCube, which is way better than the original one.
Don't people hate that?
Yeah, but they do. But I actually don't hate it, but it's way, like, the first one is unplayable. I dare people to go look at the original Metal Gear Solid on YouTube. Just go look at how that game fucking looks. Nonetheless plays. So why would you not want to just go back and do that one first, and then it gives you room to do all of them?
Yeah, I mean, it does strike me as like kind of like skipping to the finish line. You know what I mean? Like, hey, Metal Gear Solid 3, the fan favorite. Let's just do that one. And it's like, well, what about the literal first 2 that could both use? Like, I think 2 is like fine. Like, I know it plays like dated, but like it never really got in the way for me much. I know, like, Colin, it was a big problem for him, but Metal Gear Solid 1 is rough. Yeah, man. Like, that is a rough experience.
And Metal Gear Solid 3 is less rough. I think the subsistence version of that game has a 3D camera. So that's the one that in fact needs the least work, you know?
Yeah. I mean, aside from like, why not 4 also? Because that one's like just stranded, you know, on PlayStation 3, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And what's interesting about that too is that they've given that attention. Like, do you guys remember they patched it for trophies like 5 years after it came out? Like, really random shit.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't get it.
This is a very weird thing. I don't know how to feel about this whole thing. Like, I'm focusing on Metal Gear because that's what I know most. I'm not super familiar with like the Japanese indie side of development, especially over at Konami. But like, to me, them just like bringing Snake Eater out of the ground and being like, yeah, we're gonna remake this, even though it's arguably the most functional game to it's like the most modern, or it's the most functional modern version of a classic Metal Gear game that you could possibly get now as of current day.
Yeah.
Like there's Metal Gear Solid 5, obviously it's like a modern game, and 4 if you have a PS3, God help you if you want to boot that thing up on that slow piece of shit. But 3 is like such a fine game to play now. Like I don't get it. It's such a weird thing to do. And the intention here, I assume, is to continue Metal Gear Solid after this.
Right. And I
which is
think you're
going
right.
to be a rough sell for a lot of people. I don't know anybody, like the majority of Metal Gear Solid fans, and I mean like people who really enjoy Metal Gear Solid fans, or who really enjoy Metal Gear Solid, are people who are very familiar with who Kojima is. I think it's one of the most, because I feel like you could have like Call of Duty and like people who like play Call of Duty who don't know who the hell Vince Zampella is, or who the hell worked at Respawn when Call of Duty 4 launched, or even if Respawn made it. Like there are plenty of people who didn't, but I think most people who enjoy those classic Metal Gear Solid games know a lot about Hideo Kojima. Especially the people who are still in the market to play those games. They definitely know. So, and especially after Metal Gear Survive, man, like I don't know what they're planning as far as this weird kind of like, dig your dad out of a grave and like wear his face and come to your birthday party being like, hey, it's me, it's your dad. Don't you remember me? Like, I don't know how they're expecting that to go over, but everything else in this, everything aside from the Metal Gear stuff strikes me as totally like fine, like, and interesting. And the Bloober Team thing is still bizarre, but
yeah, I don't
really know what's going on.
Especially because they apparently turned down Supermassive. I was like, what? And then you went with Bloober Team? Okay. That's fine.
That's what I was going to say is like, I mean, Supermassive, they're such an interesting studio to me in that they had so much promise after, Until Dawn?
Yep.
Yeah. And then they made those just absolutely terrible VR games for PlayStation VR that were just not like Bravo Team is horrendous, an absolutely horrendous game. And then now they're doing Dark Pictures Anthology, and those haven't really panned out or been very good either. So it's just a weird kind of fall from grace somewhat from a studio that had so much promise. But then, like you said, Bloober Team, it seems to be a very mixed, a lot of people have a lot of mixed reactions to that team. A lot of people not so hot on the medium. Layers of Fear seems to have some dedicated fans.
Yeah,
but
the first Layers of Fear is good. I like that game.
I think IGN rated Layers of Fear 2 like shockingly high, like a 9 maybe or something. I'll check that in a second.
Yeah, they're a hit or miss team. I just can't let go of the fact that they just released those bombs early on PS4. I was like, holy shit! I will never erase that from my mind. Basement Crawl.
Yeah,
come on, man.
Yeah. So IGN did give Layers of Fear 2 a 9, which is just one reviewer's opinion, but just to show a point that some people thought that game was like pretty incredible. Sure. But I just don't know. The weird thing is that I think a lot of people associate that, oh, you need to give Silent Hill to a horror developer, where I'm not necessarily of the mindset where I think you can take a regular, quote unquote, regular accomplished developer and they can make a good horror game. It's weird. There doesn't seem to be, when you think of like AAA studios at this point that are focused on horror games, like what's really left at this point? Not really very many.
I also just want to say this real quick about, because I don't want to lose sight of Metal Gear
right
before I get any further away from this. What do you think about my theory, and I'm going to present it to you, that Metal Gear Solid 3 goes first because it is the first game in the chronology, and that perhaps they're going to release them in the order that they happened, which is unlikely, of course, but could be, right? Like 1964 is Metal Gear Solid 3, and then 2007 is Metal Gear Solid 2, and then Metal Gear Solid 3 is 64, Metal Gear Solid 2 is 2007, Metal Gear Solid 1 is 2005. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. I don't see why you would do it that way, but I don't know, just give them the benefit of the doubt, I guess, in the meantime.
Right. That would be interesting. though, I don't know. I feel like that I wouldn't want to play it. Like, let's say someone's playing it for the first time. I'm not telling people like, yeah, you should start in chronological order, because I feel like it has more impact playing the first two and learning about Big Boss and stuff like that. But I don't know. Metal Gear Solid 3, that's one of the few that I haven't finished. Like, when that game came out, it didn't grab me. I want to go back actually and replay that whole series, but I feel like I shouldn't with all these rumors around the series, because I swear I saw some rumor that said it was going to be a collection of all three, which I don't know. There's so many rumors now. It's hard to
I know the
keep
rumor.
track.
It would be, but this is where Virtuous working on the game is promising, because they're huge. So it's conceivable that all three games are coming. I mean, that would be like a small fraction of what that studio is doing. So
yeah,
right.
Yeah, but also a nice illustration of what I was saying last week. Remember, we were saying like why that was weird with the Initiative and Crystal and others. It's like you never hear Virtuous's name, or you sometimes do, but with 2,500 employees, studios like that are working on everything you're playing. You know, like everything that you have your hands on. It's crazy. All right, my friends, let's move on to the next one here. Number 4. Bizarre Final Fantasy spin-off Stranger of Paradise has a release date straight out of Tokyo Game Show, and it's a hell of a lot closer to launch than I think any of us thought. The game will come to PlayStation 5 on March 18th, 2022. Its full title, as we know, is Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, and it's a prequel to the original Final Fantasy, which launched in Japan in 1987 and revolved around the Warriors of Light fighting an enemy named Garland to protect their planet's precious elemental crystals. It appears that in this game you play as Garland, and it's presumably how he went from good to bad. Gameplay in the new trailer indicates that Stranger of Paradise is an action-oriented game, which is not a huge surprise considering who's making it, Team Ninja. Team Ninja, of course, is best known for its Ninja Gaiden reboots beginning in 2004 on the original Xbox, and is also renowned for its Dead or Alive fighting series, and more recently, PS4 and PS5 console-exclusive games, Neo and Neo 2, from 2017 and 2020, respectively. Of course, Team Ninja is a Tecmo Koei team. So, Dustin, I'm curious what you think. I actually did watch this trailer. I'm really against watching trailers outside of the events because I don't like ruining games for me, but people were making fun of it, and I was kind of curious about what the tone of the game is, and the tone of the game is really unbearable. But I will say the gameplay looks great. But it's unclear what it is, and I wish devs would stop doing this one annoying thing. Stop turning off the HUD. Stop turning off the HUD. Like, I need to see it. You know, like, it's cool to see the game in action and its implied gameplay, but it's not going to look like that. And so that annoyed me, and I noticed that right away. But I also felt like it's got a little bit of Final Fantasy VII Remake in it, it seems. It's not menu-based, so, we don't know. But I felt that little vibe from it, maybe a little Final Fantasy 13-ish in some of its, like, kinetics. But it kind of looked like a Ninja Gaiden game. And that was what was so interesting, because I thought it was going to be more like Neo, and maybe it will be, but, well, I don't know.
It is.
Yeah, so talk to me about that.
Yeah. So there's the trial version, and there's actually a second
there's two of them
trial
now,
out.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I have not played the second one yet. I have it downloaded, but it is very similar to Neo in that you're getting new equipment all the time, swapping it out. I believe it has like the souls element where you drop souls and pick up souls from enemies and stuff like that. I don't hold me to that. I can't remember exactly, but so yeah, my impression when I played the first trial was this is a Final Fantasy Neo game, like, pretty clearly. But man, the meme that came out of the most recent trial, which we put this in the group text, which I don't know if, Colin, you were able to see it because the person you said had you blocked that posted the video. But there's a part where this girl explains like how I became chaos because blah, 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 like all Final Fantasy gibberish.
Oh,
and then the guy, the main character goes, bullshit. And they gets his phone and just starts playing Limp Bizkit and walks away. And it's fucking amazing to the point where, like, it is so absurd that it made me want to play this game more. At this point, I wasn't sure about the style, the whatever you want to say, the vibe of the game, like the overly melodramatic feel to it. The guy saying chaos over and over.
Chaos.
At this point, that clip showed me, I feel like they know what they're doing. Like they are leaning into this aspect of the game, and at this point, I'm interested if it knows how stupid it is in a good way, right?
I could not believe that when I saw it. I swore up and down. I was like, this can't be real. This must be, editing is easy, and it's just real. Like, it's a part of the game. He pulls out his phone, dude, just plays Limp Bizkit, walks 8 feet and shuts it off like they ran out of the license. I can't with it, man. What a baffling game.
Yeah, what do you think?
I hope the game is. I hope it's nothing but that. I hope the game is nothing but shit like that. I'm frozen.
Yeah,
I'm frozen by because I'm just trying to imagine
because
I'm trying to imagine like the pen to paper, like, okay, like, this is the script for this scene in Final Fantasy Origins. Limp Bizkit's got to be in there somewhere.
Dude, here's the connecting thread, guys.
Like, how?
Here's what we have to keep in mind.
Ridiculous.
The creative producer of this game is Tetsuya Nomura,
yep,
who is also the creative mind behind Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
So
I thought you were gonna say the executive producer of this game is Fred Durst.
Fred Durst.
Right.
Dude, I like Tetsuya Nomura. I don't know much about him, as I've not watched many interviews with him. But this dude is somehow straddling, creating the most stupid story that makes no sense about this teenager that hangs out with Donald and Goofy and visits Disney worlds, while at the same time is making this Final Fantasy game where the main character shouts chaos a million times and listens to Limp Bizkit. Like, this dude, he seems to be one of a kind and honestly a treasure.
So is Jack Garland's a villain, right?
Well, I think he's a villain. He's a villain in Final Fantasy 1. I think this is about how he becomes that villain.
Right. Well, it's very clear. If you pull out your phone and play Limp Bizkit, not only just for you, but for everyone around you. Like, he didn't even have headphones on. He played it out of his phone speakers like the worst person imaginable.
That's too much. Because I love Limp Bizkit and I wouldn't do that to anyone.
It is fitting for a villainous character. I will say that. Like, they're really nailing the archittype of a villain.
The new Limp Bizkit song, by the way, that just came out is called Dad Vibes, and it's actually very good if people want to go check it out. It's very short too. It's like 2 minutes and 10 seconds long or something like that. It's like a fucking Green Day song from Dookie. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Number 5. Oh man. And yet another move that continues to transform its identity. Publisher Ubisoft has revealed a free-to-play battle royale game called Ghost Recon Frontline. It's a snooze. Ubisoft described it as a, quote, tactical action massive PvP shooter set in the Ghost Recon universe, end quote, and it will be coming to both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 at a still undetermined point in the future. The studio creating the game is Ubisoft Bucharest, an in-house Romanian team that worked in a support capacity on the previous 2 Ghost Recon games, Wildlands and Breakpoint. Those were both led by Ubisoft Paris and launched in 2017 and 2019, respectively. In a press release announcing this game, Ubisoft promises 100-plus player matches on an island called Drakemore across several modes, including a squad-based battle royale, and more to come after launch. The game also packs character classes, and technical tests begin soon, although they are only happening on PC. Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon is 20 years old this year. Its first game launched on PC in 2001 and PS2 in 2002, and it's long been a staple of Ubisoft's Tom Clancy slate. Reimagining it as a free-to-play massive multiplayer game fits in with what Ubisoft has been trying to do with other games, including pumping the brakes on Assassin's Creed, making a free-to-play Division game, and even teasing a Far Cry multiplayer game in the recently released Far Cry 6. I don't know if you guys saw that. I just want to kick this over to you. The Funky Kong Experience, great name, wrote in and said, hey, fellas, with the announcement of Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Frontline, can we talk about how absolutely ridiculous its name is? Is Ubisoft so reliant on nostalgic brands that it had to have its new name, game, brand, generic word? I saw that. I was like, that name sucks. Like, Ubisoft has some bad names, really bad names. But that name sucks. It's like, you remember Dustin brought up Bravo Team by Supermassive earlier? Like, it's like naming your game Bravo Team. Frontline? First of all, there's already 17 shooters with the name Frontline in the name.
Yeah, isn't Medal of Honor Frontline like from like 2000? That was like before Rising Sun. I think.
I think Medal of Honor Frontline. I'm looking up, but I want to say 2007. No.
What
am I thinking of with
2002
Frontline?
Or something?
Let me see. Oh no, you're right. 2002. Oh no, I'm thinking of. Oh yeah, you're right. 2002, May 29, 2002. Yeah, I'm thinking of 2007. What came out in 2007? Oh, I'm totally off. Airborne was the game I was thinking of. I wrote the strategy guide for that.
Oh yeah. I don't know. It's a shitty name. It kind of reminds me of like when Battlefield Hardline, when they made that weird cops and robbers Battlefield game that everybody was like, what?
Which Amy Hennig wrote on. A lot of people don't know that Amy Hennig actually worked on that game.
Yeah, I actually heard people thought the story was okay, but like the
No, I just couldn't imagine Amy Hennig going to fucking Visceral and they're like, yeah, you're gonna work on hard line. It's like, oh,
battle line hard front or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I can't even say it.
Yeah, it's a mess of just nonsense words. Talking about Tom Clancy is hard now because if I acknowledge my pain, then it's real, you know. So I'm trying to thread this needle where I'm like, you know, I don't have to acknowledge that Splinter Cell is dead, but
dude, you want Splinter Cell? Can you imagine what they're gonna do to Splinter Cell? At this point, I'm trying to put all my vibes into hoping I'm wrong now.
I don't want Splinter Cell from these people. Like some weird battle royale where he's got like dinosaur costumes on, sneaking around of like some weird ventilation, unit. I can't.
I was gonna say real quick, Chris, in some way, because you wish things into existence and get exactly what you want. The gods have been kind to you because they're like, you don't want this. Yeah. And they've just been ignoring you. Yeah.
There's actually some people have been telling me about this weird Splinter Cell game that's not Splinter Cell for a while. They've been like sending me like it is exactly like Spies versus Mercs multiplayer, but it's like some indie team and it's like it's not Splinter Cell, but and I've been meaning to check it out because it's obviously the closest thing I'm going to get. But I will say this as far as, generic brand names aside, I mean, we like Call of Duty, Black Ops, Cold War. It's like what? This is not a uniquely Ubisoft problem. I would say
I would agree.
It's kind of everywhere right now. Like even Final Fantasy Origins, Halo Infinite.
Right. Well, didn't we make fun of Call of Duty, Black Ops, Cold War? Like they're just. It's just like what?
Even the new one, like Call of Duty Vanguard, what does that mean? What are you talking about?
Call of Duty World War II, Vanguard, Airborne.
Infinite Warfare, Advanced Warfare.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's like, I'm not saying David Jaffe makes fun of the name Herbroxia. I didn't name that, but Herbroxia is a much better name than. At least we made up a word, right?
Yeah, at the very least. And it sounds cool. Yeah, it's not like some Frontline. I don't know. Generic names aside, man, how many things games is Ubisoft going to make that absolutely nobody asked for?
We're about to find out.
Like, what is the demand for this?
They have Red Storm working on The Division. It doesn't even make sense. I like Red Storm. They are the ones that created Tom Clancy games, but Tom Clancy actually started that studio, so it's kind of cool. But they're just shuffling things around now between teams that don't even really make any sense. Dustin, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Well, have you guys watched the trailer for this game at all?
No, I'll put it on now for myself.
You should put it on. This is it just looks like if you go to Aldi and buy generic military, like battle royale game to a T, like Abandoned Island. And like the only unique aspect of this trailer that I'm seeing is that people are calling in like something like a support structure to like stand on, like you can build stuff like that, I guess.
Yeah,
but
it looks looks like everything I have ever seen.
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree I'm looking at it now. It's just, and I like that they get the devs in and stuff like that, but I feel bad for them too. Like you don't really know, that this isn't the right game. You have to.
Dude, here's what we got to consider with Ubisoft right now. We are right out after the release of the new Far Cry game, which the common conversation around it is that it may be fun in some aspects, but overall the game design is just too dated at this point, and they are just doing the same thing over and over. We saw their Battle Royale game completely flop, and now we're seeing so many free-to-play game announcements, and you see this is one of them. Ubisoft might be falling off.
Yeah, I think so.
It doesn't even look that discernible from X Defiant. Man,
X Defiant.
outside of the fact that it's a battle royale game and it's obviously like obviously the premise is different. It doesn't really. This looks like everything I have seen ever.
Yeah,
like from any modern military shooter. Like this looks like not Battlefield. This looks like Medal of Honor. Actually, as I'm looking at it, it looks like exactly Medal of Honor Warfighter.
Well,
you remember that name?
Yeah, I mean, it's another, and that was an original Xbox game, wasn't it?
No, that was
Warfighter?
Xbox One. That was when Medal of Honor was trying to.
Oh,
come
Medal
back.
of Honor, right? I'm thinking Ghost Recon now. Ghost Recon Warfighter, I think, was a
all the fucking same.
Yeah, it's
man.
So Jay Phillips wrote in and said, "Yo, CCD, am I the only one who thinks Ubisoft has completely lost the plot? They announced the next Assassin's Creed as a shared world multiplayer game, a punk rock Clancy shooter with Splinter Cell characters, and now they are dropping a generic as hell looking Ghost Recon Battle Royale that is getting blasted by fans. How can a company be so incredibly out of touch with what its fans wants? What its fans want? This is getting ridiculous." I agree in the sense that I used to really have I have a lot of respect for Ubisoft still. They make good games, but I used to really look at Ubisoft as being kind of the high watermark of third party publishers. They own all of their own teams. They have a shit ton of teams. They own their whole pipeline, and they seem to be in touch with what people wanted. I know that I make fun of Assassin's Creed, but it seemed like there were millions of people that would play that game every year. Now, I'm not saying that you should do that, but it seems like they have overreacted. It's like you have a napkin next to the stove that catches on fire, and so you break out the fire extinguisher and fucking douse it. It's like, that wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
You probably could have just taken it away and waved it in the air a little bit.
Yeah, just shook it a little bit.
Right. It's like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it's crazy how like quickly things have kind of just turned around, because in my opinion, EA is the strongest of these big three publishers right
I agree.
now. Like, they are making things that are interesting, that people want to see. People want Dead Space, And that was something I genuinely didn't think would happen. Like, I didn't think Dead Space would ever come back, like, actually. So the fact that EA is listening in such a way that I don't know if you saw, and I can't even remember if we talked about this on the show, but the technical preview of that Dead Space build, where they were talking about how, like, the flesh of the xenomorph, like actually like slices off, like appropriate to like when you do damage to them. It's like, this is cool shit. This is actually like really cool stuff that they're doing to the original Dead Space that is actually totally in line with what Dead Space is. And then here's Sam Fisher in a free-to-play MOBA or whatever the hell that weird mobile game was that they did, where they had like all these like, here's famous character from The Division that you all recognize, and we've thrown him into this weird XCOM clone for mobile devices. And it's just like, I don't know how this, and then obviously Activision with all the stuff going on over there, and them folding in the developers of Crash and Spyro into yet more support roles for Call of Duty and Blizzard. And
yeah, they gave one to Blizzard.
Yeah, what the hell?
Yeah.
You just came out with a very successful new Crash Bandicoot game from a developer that actually showed genuine promise in making that style of game that people are really genuinely like enjoying again, and then you fold them into a support studio? Have you learned nothing?
Yeah, it's weird that
EA is the only studio now.
Well,
that,
it's just
like,
weird
looks
that
like
when
they're
one
doing
is
a good
up, the
job.
other two are down. It always seems to be that way. When EA was down during the consumerist era, when they were getting voted constantly like the worst company in the world, no one really hated Activision at that point, and Ubisoft no one hated at that point either. I really feel like Activision did a lot of... Activision is just blatantly chasing money, and so you either respect it or you don't. But Ubisoft, rather, I think, is a confusing company, because as we say over and over again, when you make a choice and execute, you have to give yourself 3 to 5 years. You can't start a battle royale in 2018 and be like, yeah, this is a good idea. And it's a good idea if it was ready now. You need to anticipate the next thing, or get into niches. Like I really liked what Dragon Quest did, or Square Enix did rather, with Dragon Quest Builders, where it's like, we're not necessarily trying to make a Minecraft clone. It is a Minecraft clone, but it's not contingent on that. It's, are you a Dragon Quest fan? And so here's a little something on the side. It's not going to sell millions of copies, or what they do with their Musou games over at Koei Tecmo. So I just don't understand Ubisoft's mentality here. And I tend to agree. I think they're in for a world of hurt. I could be wrong about this, but dude, and speaking of names, let's not forget that Division game is called Heartland.
Yeah, it's just all these words that don't mean anything. It's just like, here's a new A&E, here's a new drama on TNT that you've never heard of and no one will talk about ever again. It's like Heartland. It's, I don't know, like, but even if you look at just the output over the last like couple of years, you have like Jedi Fallen Order, you have Star Wars Squadrons, like a VR like flight sim game in the Star Wars universe. You have It Takes Two, which was awesome. Mass Effect, the Legendary Edition, Knockout City, which is actually like genuinely good. Lost in Random, which I haven't heard anything about, but it's weird and different and cool. And Dead Space is on the horizon, and Battlefield is shaping up to be genuinely pretty cool.
And they bought Codemasters as well, so they have a couple new teams there too.
Like, it's amazing how quickly, because even just a few years ago, I would have said that, yeah, Activision's probably still, up top right now. I think shortly before they did that, they pulled that whole weird thing with, they released Crash Team Racing without monetization, waited for the review stores to come in to praise it, and then shoved it in there like a few months afterwards. Up until that moment, I was ready to be like, yeah, Activision's still doing like super good. And even with Crash 4, I was like, oh, that's really cool that they're doing that. And the Spyro Reignited shows, they really were doing a good job. And then all gone.
Yeah, I don't know why that.
In the matter of a few months.
I don't know why. I don't know.
Crazy.
Very strange indeed. We'll keep an eye on that. And by the way, speaking of, we kick the shit out of some of these people sometimes on the show. So I want to give props. Matthew Galt at Vice Waypoint wrote a really awesome review, I thought, of Far Cry 6, and I tweeted it out. It's really good. And I was surprised to read it on Vice, because you expected, like, every paragraph I was like, oh, when are they going to get into the politics? Oh, when are they going to get into the fucking trite? And they do talk about it a little bit, but it's like totally reasonable. And I just sat by myself nodding along as I read the review. And I wrote a review like that. And the review is basically like, I'm not playing this game anymore. And I wrote a review like that for a game called Amy on PS3. And I feel like that's a really effective form of criticism, as long as you can thread the needle. And I think he did a really nice job. So go check that out if you want. Okay. Number 6. Just when you thought Sony was set to leave PlayStation 3 and Vita alone for a little while, came a message from the Japanese corporation. We want buying games on these platforms to be as difficult and painful as possible. Here's the rub. Starting October 27th, you can't use credit cards or PayPal to buy digital games on either platform. Nor can you use credit cards or PayPal on those platforms to add money to your wallet. Instead, according to Sony, quote, should you wish to buy digital content for your PS3 or PS Vita, you must first add sufficient funds to your wallet. You can add funds by redeeming a PlayStation Store gift card on your PS3 or PS Vita, or by using a credit or debit card, PayPal, or other available payment method using a desktop or mobile device, or a PS4 or PS5 console, end quote. While many gamers have always added funds to their wallet using these methods, the reality is most people buy their games straight up a la carte by transaction. This extra barrier to purchase appears to be setting the stage for Sony pulling the plug again, likely by citing poor game sales and few downloads. However, that's conspiracy talk for now. What we do know in the meantime is if you want PS3 or Vita games digitally, get ready to jump through some extra hoops beginning October 27th. Isaac Hodgins down wrote in and said, hey, hi gang, if Sony are really this determined to kill the Vita and PS3, can they just give them a more justified execution rather than we aren't killing them while proceeding to beat their corpse? It is getting insane, Dustin. I don't know if you guys received this email. I did, from Sony. I don't know if it's specifically only being sent to people that still buy games on those platforms, which is probably true. And I just bought a PS3 game and I buy Vita games all the time. So I received this email, and it does indeed go into this like rigmarole that you have to get through. And I think that what they would end up doing probably is saying, listen, we are trying to get rid of the vectors by which we can be attacked. And getting rid of the payment vectors is certainly a wise thing to do. It just shuts the door. But I really feel like the ulterior motive, Dustin, is to make it difficult so that they can go to the board with new numbers and say, like, no one is buying games. Can we just shut the fucking thing down? And I think it's kind of screwed up. Like, why make it so difficult? I don't think it's that difficult. You have to add funds to your wallet and jump through that extra hoop, but it's going to stop people from buying stuff.
Yeah, it'll definitely stop people from buying stuff. I feel less conspiratorial about it, honestly. I feel like there's probably maintenance or security, like you mentioned. Like, we just saw Sony completely shut down multiple games due to security related concerns on legacy platforms. So I'm not surprised that they are looking at this like, well, we want to keep this open. The fans demanded we keep it open. This is the pain point, right? Like, this is the part that is making this difficult for us. How do we meet somewhere in the middle where people can still buy stuff, but it's going to make it much easier on our end? Who knows? Maybe they are looking for a way that they can kind of push things along so they can, you know, put old Yeller, the Vita, out to pasture. But I don't know. We'll just, I guess, have to wait and see.
You have anything to say about this, Chris?
I think how do I put this? I feel like these things, they probably should have just stuck with their original plan.
I think that sometimes,
you know,
I think what they could have done is to just say, if they just gave everyone more time. I don't even think it was necessary. Sure. The shutting of down the stores sucked, but it was really what people were upset about. Is like, what? Like, it gave you no time. I think that was the bigger thing. I almost kind of, dare I say, I kind of almost agree with you. Like, if you just stretched it out and said, like, in a year, we're shutting this thing down. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be like a year's notice. And I think that's totally fair. That gives a lot of people plenty of time to do a lot with their machine, you know? But the way they did it was like, what was it? I think it was like within 2 months or something. Like,
I think what they announced was that the PSP stuff got shut down immediately. So you didn't even have a choice with that. And then, they moved on to the Vita and the PS3, as I recall.
Yeah. So I don't know, like this whole thing seems to me like the starting point of a really confusing road and a really winding path that we're all going to have to go through. It's like, okay, you can do this now on PS3, but you can't do this thing that you used to. And now, like, hey, PayPal, now it's like, it's going to be like, oh, well, the wallet doesn't work, but PayPal still works because PayPal is connected through this. So maybe in like a year, then you're going to have to go through PayPal exclusively.
Right.
And then at some point, PayPal will be like, hey, this isn't working. And then it's going to be like, well, it's a PayPal thing. Like, we couldn't do it. And it's like, you're trying to do it. We know they're trying to kill these platforms. They're trying to kill these stores. And that wouldn't even be such a big deal if they could just figure out the godforsaken back compat problem. And I think most people would be set, but they can't figure that out. So instead they're on this weird platform right now where they have to like pretend like they don't want to kill this thing. And it's just so obvious that they do. Because it's causing them nothing but problems. Dustin had a good point of just like Little Big Planet being so open on those platforms because there's been no updates to those platforms in probably over 5 years, over 7 years, probably.
Yeah, other than they release like the only firmware that comes to any of
small bits of firmware.
Right, they release firmware. I was going to say specifically only when the consoles are broken by someone. Then they relate, like when Vita's cracked, they release a new firmware. When PS3's cracked, they release a new firmware. It's just security firmware. They're not doing anything to performance. They've gotten everything out of that fucking poor machine that they're ever going to get out of it. But I will say too, and I don't think I've ever mentioned this, but people know if they play games on Vita, there's a mysterious error that you already get. If you have two-factor authentication on your PS4, you can't buy games on Vita. And it doesn't tell you why, and you have to just shut it off, and then it works. Like, there's weird shit like that to the point where I feel like it is intentional, Yeah. They're like, oh yeah, we could easily just have told you at the pop-up, shut off your two-factor authentication. But instead it gives you this weird arcane message. Then you got to go and like Google the numbers and then like in some forum, dusty forum post.
Arcane message.
Yeah. It's very strange. So anyway.
Dark Brotherhood.
Number 7. The Eagle Eyes at website Eurogamer discovered something interesting on the UK PlayStation Network that appears to be only available there for the time being. Game trials. According to their reporting, both Death Stranding Director's Cut and Sackboy: A Big Adventure, second-party games, offer free trials for download when you go to their pages. You'll see that offer right next to the game's price, which you can click to purchase. You can then play Death Stranding for 6 hours or Sackboy for 5, but as Eurogamer notes, quote, there is a catch and a pretty big one at that. According to the small print, the timer begins from the moment you hit download via console or add the library via web, end quote. This is, of course, classic Sony stupidity, as those with poor connections won't even be able to download the games in time to play them. As Eurogamer writes, as the Eurogamer's writer states himself, quote, I'm downloading the Death Stranding trial now, and my PS5 tells me it'll be nearly 2 hours before I've downloaded enough data to start playing, and 3 hours until all the data is downloaded. That means I'll have just a few hours of my trial left to play the game, end quote. There are other caveats too, but this is likely nothing to get flummoxed about. This is Sony testing the waters with new features that will likely find their way into the system more widely, and it could potentially be a PS Plus perk down the line that the timer only runs when you play. Or Sony could just do the right thing and let people download and play any game on PSN for a limited time. That's what I think they should do. Dustin, is that not the funniest thing you've ever heard in your life?
Yeah, that is. So, I mean, we were just talking about, you mentioned that two-factor thing with Vita, and that maybe they're doing it on purpose. Over and over, we see stuff like this with Sony's technical abilities on some simple stuff that they clearly just did not hit the mark on this one. But that being said, the idea of a trial is fantastic. And I think that it's fair that it really should be like the moment you open the app, the 6 hours begins. And I'm even fine with like 6 real-time hours. Like you can't put in an hour here and then an hour tomorrow. I'm cool that it's like, okay, you have 6 hours to try this game. Whether you play it for 1 or you play it for all 6, that's fine. But it's just 6 hours from the moment you open the app. That is awesome. And I think with a game like Death Stranding, this is perfect. We were talking about earlier how this game might not be for everybody. And so being able to sample it is fantastic. And this would somewhat help their issue with their lack of returns. It's not a full fix, but like, for example, on Steam, you can get a return on any game you buy as long as it's under 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours of playtime.
That's what I think.
Yeah, it's 2 hours.
Yeah, and that's what I know people manipulate that, and that's wrong. And there should be a for smaller games there should be that should be able to be shut off. But I do think that I do find it fascinating that they allow that to happen, and the platform is vibrant. You know,
mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. So I'm all for it. Just figure it out. Do it right.
I think. Yeah, it's a great idea. It's funny how like Leslie Nielsen like Airplane. It feels it feels like Frank Drebin is in charge of Sony's like back end sometimes, where it's like, yeah, it's like, we'll start the timer at the time of download. That is insane. That is actually such an insane premise to me. Like I can't even imagine that being pitched anywhere in a room with serious people, and it doesn't get any pushback at all. I don't know, but
it really doesn't make any sense.
I would say the trial thing is a great idea, if only just because it kind of brings back the essence of what demos are, you know, in a modern way. But also, I think I wouldn't even go so far as to say like every game needs one. I would say that like the developer should be able to choose whether their game is demoable and how long the demo is allowed for. Because I think like with a game like, I don't know, you think of something not necessarily super contemporary, but something like Gone Home or something. You shouldn't have 6 hours to play Gone Home for free,
right?
Because
I totally agree. Totally agree.
That's such a small game, and there are plenty of other games that you could beat in 2 hours or 3 hours. That like it would just not be. That's a huge flaw in Steam's system, I think. So I think the best way to go about it is go to developers individually. It's like, hey, look, we have this platform. We think it's good for the player. How quickly would it take somebody to go through your game, or like how quickly are you into the action before at the time of the beginning? Like I think Doom, for example, Doom's a pretty long game, Doom 2016, relatively, but I think even 6 hours is too long for Doom. You know, like because the second you start Doom, you're in it. Like I think Doom is like maybe 3 hours, and maybe for like an indie game, it's more like an hour and a half or 2 hours or something. Give you some. I think there needs to be some flexibility in there. I don't think it should be like a flat time for every single experience. I don't think it should be like mandated for every single release, obviously, for the sake of indies specifically. But I do think the idea is great. I think we've even talked about this exact kind of system.
Yeah, definitely.
On the show before. Yeah. Like I can't imagine that we've had 171 of these episodes, and we've never brought up the premise of like free trials or demos coming back in a modern, contemporary way. So if this works, I'd be all about it. But you can't have the timer start at download. That is insane.
It's just nonsense. I mean, it's just classic Sony nonsense. And I agree. Like, it could be consecutive time, but it's very similar to when you buy a movie on Amazon and it just sits there. And when you play it, or rent rather, when you play it, then the time starts and it's sequential time. So I'm totally fine with that as well. But it's weird. And I feel like Sony made a big deal in the PS4 era about splitting up package files so that you can begin playing games earlier. And some games allow that. But what they should really do is make that a point of emphasis for all games, then allow people to download any game they want. There'll be a small package that you download in the beginning that can be the demo package, and then you can download the rest of the game. And I think that would encourage people that are like, I already spent my bandwidth, I already spent this time, just buy the game, and it unlocks with a code. You don't have to put the code in manually, of course. It just unlocks like a code. So I don't know. I would like to see this happen, but I don't know. It's cool to see them trying things. And remember, in Poland, we talked about this about a month ago. In Poland, PlayStation is messing around with like video rentals and shit. So more things are coming, and I'm interested to see like how their tests are looking. Okay. Mm-hmm. We can probably get through the rest of these fairly quickly. Number 8, Konami's revitalization of its long-running Pro Evolution Soccer or PES series has the right idea. In a silo dominated by rival FIFA, produced by Electronic Arts, PES's only path to success is to do something very different, similar to Sega's $30 cheaper football game back in 2005. But the quality has to be there. And with eFootball 2022, the spiritual continuation of PES, it's not there at all. The game is being widely panned around the internet, and publisher Konami is aware. In a statement posted to its social channels, the company said the following, quote, "After the release of eFootball 2022, we have received lots of feedback and requests regarding game balance and includes pass speed and defense operation. We would also like to acknowledge that there have been reports of problems users have experienced with cutscenes, facial expressions, movements of players, and the behavior of the ball. We are very sorry for the problems and want to assure everyone that we will take all concerns seriously and strive to improve the current situation. This work will be continuously updated, quality will be improved, and content will be added consistently," end quote. PES, which is known as Winning 11 in Japan, first launched on Super Famicom in 1995 and has been released in some form on various platforms every year since. There's not much more to say about this. I know we're not really into these games, but I encourage you guys and everyone else to go look at some of the videos that are coming out of this game. They are fucking hysterical. There's one of a dude running like Naruto, doing the Naruto or whatever run, like with his arms backwards. And he's running down the field with like the ball. It's the funniest. Dude, this game is a gold mine for funny videos.
I was about to say to you, like, I was about to say, like, oh man, the problems can't be that bad. It's a soccer game, and then I saw behavior of the ball.
Right.
Yeah, which is like probably the only important thing to get right in a
pretty fundamental. Pretty fundamental.
It's pretty. Yeah, that's pretty. That should be the first thing you have. Like, that should be the thing that's ironed out when your player models are still the Unity pills.
Right, right,
like
exactly. Just the geometry.
Yeah. Just the rigid body. Right. And then like you figure it's like, we'll figure those out later. We got to get the ball moving like a ball. How is that technology not also, by the way, how do you not just like import those physics?
Right, from PES. Like that's exactly right. That's what I'm confused about too. First of all, this is a last gen focused game. And I think people's fears about this game are coming to fruition. And I didn't really believe it at first because people are like, this is a mobile game. And Konami's like, no, it's not. Kind of like half-hearted. And it is. Yeah. I think it clearly is. And it's what Dustin was saying much earlier in the show. You got to aim to the lowest common denominator. And the lowest common denominator for eFootball is phone. So I think that this is a shame because, and Dustin, I don't know if you have anything to add, but I'll finish for myself to just say, I think a lot of people are rooting for Konami. We as gamers don't want EA to dominate FIFA. Like, it's good that someone else does something. And I think it's smart to go free to play. I think everything they're doing is right, but the execution is not there. It's a shame. Yeah, what do you think, Dustin?
I'm watching the video I'm watching is called eFootball 2020/PES 2022. Funny bugs and glitches.
Yeah, I'm watching the same thing.
Dude, there's awesome stuff. Like, there's one, sorry for the audio listeners, I'll describe it, where they're like talking at the beginning and they're doing like a pseudo T-pose It's not like a full arm stretch, but their arms are just out. And then there's one where a guy's running, but his entire body is flat against the field, and he's like zipping around. It's pretty great.
Yeah,
this is good stuff.
I thought you guys would appreciate that.
This is awesome.
Yeah, so go check out some funny eFootball 2022 memes if you want. In the meantime, hopefully the game improves. Number 9, October's new PlayStation Now games have been revealed, and there's very much a big game in the bunch. These games are available beginning now for all PS Now subscribers, and the big entry this month is The Last of Us Part 2. Released in 2020 and divisively received, The Last of Us Part 2 is nonetheless one of the console's best-selling and best-regarded games, and is no doubt one of the fledgling service's biggest offerings right now, particularly because you can download PS4 games and don't have to stream them like PS3 games. You have until January 3rd of 2022 before the game leaves the service, and if you download it on PS5 via PS Now, you'll be eligible for the free enhancement patch. An interesting addition to PS Now comes in the form of Fallout 76, Bethesda's poorly received but apparently still operating MMO, first launched in 2018. This is a strange one because the product is owned by Sony rival Microsoft, but obviously Microsoft is letting many of the games, especially from Bethesda, continue unabated on PlayStation platforms. 5 other PS4 games are also joining the roster. 2016 horror compilation Amnesia Collection, 2020 real-time tactical game Desperados 3, 2019's re-release of 1999's Final Fantasy VIII, 2017's action RPG Victor Vran, and 2014 tower defense game Yet Another Tower Defense HD. So nothing to talk about there, I don't think. Fallout 76 being there is weird. I don't understand what Microsoft is even doing, but there it is.
Yeah.
And number 10 is a wrap-up. Website IGN reports DRPG Dungeon Encounters comes to PlayStation 4 on October 14th, and JRPG Atelier Sophie 2, The Alchemist of the Mysterious Dream, comes to PlayStation 4 on February 25th, 2022. Website Gematsu reports adventure game Roki comes to PlayStation 5 on October 28th. Firefighting game Fire Girl Hack and Splash, which is an awesome name, comes to PS4 and PS5. See, that's a name. Comes to PS4 and PS5 on December 14th. Adventure game What Lies in the Multiverse comes to PS4 in early 2022. Action RPG Ayuden Chronicle Rising comes to PS4 and PS5 in the spring of 2022. Adventure game Coffee Talk Episode 2 Hibiscus and Butterfly comes to PS4 at some point in 2022. Third-person action game Wanted Dead, which is another great game, comes to PS5 in 2022. Action game Cosmic comes to both PS4 and PS5 at some point in 2022. Mech action game Vengeance comes to PS5 in 2023. Racing game Red Goes Faster comes to PS5 in 2024. Procedural brawler Immortal and the Death That Follows comes to PlayStation 5 in 2025. And mech game Mobile Suit Gundam Battle Operation Code Fairy, which is I don't know what the hell that even means, was revealed for PS4 and PS5 for release in an unknown time. The website also reports that the ambitious game Arcade Paradise has been delayed out of 2021 and will now come to PS4 and PS5 at some point in 2022, while Square Enix has quietly filed a trademark for Valkyrie Elysium, perhaps signaling its intent to revive its long-dormant Valkyrie Profile series. And then website Push Square reports the Musou titled Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires comes to both PS4 and PS5 on February 15th, 2022, while the website also reports that Sony's second-party partner, IllFonic, is working on a Ghostbusters game for both PS4 and PS5, though further details are unknown. This was basically said in passing on a podcast. I reached out to guys at IllFonic to ask if this is a second-party game or not. So we'll have more information on that hopefully soon. All right, boys. It's time to get into 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas sent to us from Patreon as we wrap things up. Tradition dictates that we end each show just like this, and we'll start with I am 3D Ski. I don't know if I am Edski maybe, but with the 3, I don't know. It says, hey, CCD.
Yeah, maybe.
I know it's been talked about ad nauseum about Sony and Microsoft buying studios and whether this is good for the industry or not. Is there a world in which instead of buying a studio, that Sony could instead purchase exclusive rights to a franchise like Final Fantasy, Castlevania, etc. from their publisher? I'm thinking something similar to EA getting the Star Wars license. Anyway, gents, have a great day and appreciate the show. Dustin, this is certainly an interesting question. I will say just from a creative standpoint that I don't want this, but what would you think about this? Certainly this would be a path to least resistance, and third-party timed exclusives are the way that this is usually explored. And I think that's totally fine. Like, I wouldn't want a situation personally where Sony's like, we have Final Fantasy now. It's like, well, what about everyone else? Who cares? Like, if you want to make something Square Enix for PlayStation, make something new. And they are doing that. Like with Forspoken and Final Fantasy 16 and stuff like that. So what do you think about this idea from I Am 3D Ski?
Well,
yeah, go on.
I feel like it would be a much riskier move to buy exclusive rights to a franchise rather than just one-off titles. Like, what if, I don't know, Final Fantasy the mainline series were start to fall off and be not very good, and then they bought the exclusive rights. I think it makes much more sense to, they probably got a look at Final Fantasy 16 early in development, saw big potential in it, which, I mean, honestly, even if the game's bad, it's still a good move to get the exclusive rights because of the name alone. But in a lot of situations, Sony would have a look at a game and be like, we think this is going to be a big seller. It'll sell even better for us, or it'd be a better situation for us if it was exclusive. Let's make a deal, right? And I just don't think that it would be in their best interest to lock down an entire series when these ebb and flow all the time. So, like I said, case by case basis is the way to go, I'd say.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, they don't buy these games sight unseen. So to invest the necessary capital to acquire Final Fantasy, which would cost you billions, I would assume, would be an investment that would, because you'd have to think about where you get access to the back catalog and all. There's a lot. See, what I like, Chris, about what Square Enix is doing, particularly with Nintendo, is they're making new games there, right? Like, it's cool. They're making Triangle Strategy and Octopath Traveler and all this kind of stuff, and that's what I want. Not necessarily those kinds of games. I mean, I would love that, but I still feel like the better approach is to find good partners to make something fresh for you. And if anything, you'd want to own the IP from the start, so you don't have to buy it at a premium later.
Yeah. I would agree. I think his pitch kind of falls apart the second he says, I'm thinking similar to how EA had Star Wars. I'm like, that was
awful.
Particularly bad.
Really bad.
Right.
For Star Wars and kind of EA also. Like, it was actually just like terrible for everybody involved. And now that license is done, we're seeing a lot more cool shit. And it's exactly why that kind of thing is something that I just don't support that. I'm with Colin in the sense that I just think it's better to just create your own thing and maybe like form these relationships with other developers and just sort of find out what works for that platform or what works for this studio or see what fits. But I just that EA Star Wars thing where we got Battlefront 1 and 2 and that was it for like 10 years. It felt like it was,
and the good games started coming out when the license was finding its way into others' hands. So, because like you said,
exactly.
the dogfighting game and then of course the Respawn game were both, well, it's the Motive game and the Respawn game were both very well considered, and those came without the
tail end,
right? And those came without the exclusivity.
Yeah. And now, yeah, exactly. And now we have KOTOR and that's coming out, and just I don't know. I just don't like this idea of like homogenizing licenses. I think it's bad. I think what Marvel is doing with Sony is actually a really great idea. Like just having, hey, here's an individual, here's a character, you make a game, and that's an exclusive game, and that's it. But Spider-Man can still appear on, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, or if Marvel vs. Capcom 2, if those rumors are real and that game is like actually like being remastered in some way, they're not going to just take Spider-Man out of Marvel vs. Capcom 2 just because he's an exclusive character for Sony. He's going to stay in that game because they don't own the rights to Spider-Man. They own the rights to that game. And I think that this is just a way better way of doing things than I think these, license purchases have gone in the past. And we have very recent examples of why those paths are not the paths you want to follow.
Totally concur. We have a similar question here though from Z-Dub, who says, gentlemen, there's been a lot of talk about potential acquisitions of third-party developers by the big three, but do you think there's a possibility that we see M&A, mergers and acquisitions of major third-party devs with each other? Could Square Enix and Capcom merge? Is it possible that Ubisoft acquires FromSoft, etc.?
Don't even say that.
Yeah, Ubisoft.
Z-Dub, how dare you even say those words? I know it's hypothetical, but I am disgusted.
Yeah, it is interesting to think about this. Like, I feel let me back up and say, I've been critical of this entire decentralization of subscription services to the point in streaming on TV and movies, to the point where it's become the exact thing we hated back in the day.
Yeah, it's just cable packages again.
We had for a moment this a la carte thing going on, and it was great. And now we're right back to having basically just even more complicated television bills that are now going to a bunch of different people. And I feel like the best defense mechanism against this personally is to consider survival through your immediate rivals. And in fact, we've seen this in the past because Squaresoft and Enix were two different companies, and Square Enix is the company now. Bandai and Namco were two different companies. Now they're Bandai Namco. Koei and Tecmo were two different companies. Now they're Koei Tecmo. So yeah, it happens a lot. And I feel like if any consolidation is going to happen, I would much rather it be Capcom, Square Enix, and Konami saying like, we're going to save ourselves, as opposed to them. And then see, this is what I remember. Ubisoft has their streaming service. EA has their streaming service. PS Now, Game Pass. And I always invoke, right, on the show, Hulu, which the original idea of Hulu was all these companies coming together, Fox, NBC, others, so that they didn't have to make their own. And then eventually they just like, fuck it, we're going to make our own. And bucking that trend, I think, will be a very pro-consumer thing. And the companies that do it first, I think, will be looked at as heroes. And by saying like, well, corporate consolidation, the era of corporate consolidation with us with inflation and all of that, it's inevitable. But who can we go to that's going to protect ourselves? That's going to protect the IP. That's going to protect the gamer, the licenses, the intent. And I think about some of the mergers that I just mentioned, the three major mergers that I just mentioned, and they all worked out great. In fact, I think that a couple of those companies wouldn't even exist anymore. Namco, you can imagine not even existing if without Bandai, and Enix probably would have gone away too. So, Chris, what do you think about Z-Dub's kind of continuation of developers buying each other, or maybe publishers buying and consolidating on their end, which is not something anyone's talking about?
Yeah, I think it's possible. Obviously, there's precedent for it happening. I think a more likely thing, though, I think something that is a little bit more likely to happen is that you'll see certain developers kind of grow to the point where they kind of become publishers. They're in their own right. Where I think honestly, Bungie is kind of approaching that status where they're kind of like looking into transmedia now, and like they're working on other things. And I wouldn't be surprised to see in the next couple years Bungie acquiring a studio. Like, that wouldn't surprise me at all. And I think there are a couple of other studios that could probably end up doing that. I don't know if From Software is the kind of studio that would do that, but there's certainly a studio that commands enough respect and does well enough that they could probably do that as well. But as far as like predicting these things, like you can't, this is all like, who could have predicted Bethesda and Microsoft? Like, I would have never guessed that would happen.
Sure. No, me neither.
Like in a million years. So, these things will happen, and we'll talk about them as they happen. But like, as far as like trying to figure out like which ones are like, could Square Enix and Capcom merge? Maybe. I don't know if that's a good fit. Really, I think I would see what is Arc System Works like? Who are they under?
They're owned by Chinese interest now.
Oh, yeah. Really? Oh, damn, that sucks.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like them like, I could see them and Capcom working super.
Arc System was actually one of the few bigger teams where I was like, not anymore, but during Guilty Gear and BlazBlue, when they were really going crazy with those, I was like, Sony should buy Arc System Works. But Arc System Works is one of those companies that has turned into a publisher. They're the holders of the Technos license now, so all of the Double Dragon shit, all River City Ransom, River City Girls, and all that, that's all coming from them. So it's interesting.
Crazy.
Dustin, what do you think?
I don't know if I have a lot to add, other than I was just thinking about, he mentioned From Software, and this is Colin, something you made me think of, is just that it's we've kind of seen the independent developers really phase out completely in the recent years. Like, Insomniac was one of the last great solo truly independent developers, and now it's kind of like, I'm trying to think, like, who else is there really out there other than From Software?
But even isn't From Software owned by Katakawa and stuff? So they have a parent company. So it really is like, Insomniac really was it. I think that there are some big ones like Remedy, but again, these all have, it's the difference between closely held and privately held, right? And I don't think a lot of these companies are closely held anymore, meaning they're held by the people that work there or founded the company.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't blame them, because I would sell out in 5 seconds if I own one of these teams. I just reiterate that you don't need to take Chinese money. If they're interested, so is someone else. It's just, that's the only thing. You don't have to take their money. That's why I was so crestfallen about Kepler Interactive taking that money. I'm like, come on. Like, that's not the only source of revenue. And you're going to have to sell your soul to get your games out of there. Anyway, I digress. Michael Valdivia wrote in and said, hey, CDC, I was wondering, do you think Sony has enough family-friendly or kids games from first party on their platform? I look at Nintendo and what they offer, and it just seems they have a better ecosystem for lighthearted adventures for the younger audience. Do you think that is a factor when people go to buy a new gaming system? What do you think about this, Dustin?
I don't feel like it's as essential as it used to be, mainly because kids don't just play kids games by and large. I think at this point now, kids are playing Call of Duty, probably from like third grade on. Not all of them, but in addition to, there's so many kid-friendly games from the indie space as well. And the other thing also is that Nintendo does just completely dominate this market. And, you know, the PlayStation 5, much more expensive than a Nintendo Switch. And so, sure, Sony has a few offerings here and there, a game like Sackboy, but they know that their primary audience for the PlayStation 5 is not for kids. And so they are willing to invest in some kid stuff, but I don't think it's ever going to be a major factor for them going forward.
Yeah, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it. I don't know if it really matters. Like lately, like kids are watching like the craziest shit on YouTube right now. Like they're watching like streamers do insane shit at like they're like 13-year-olds talking about like stealing from their high schools on TikTok. Like it's not, you know, it's not. I don't think it's like a major decision factor, especially because a lot of those games are just available also on Nintendo anyway. Like I know Call of Duty isn't. I'm fairly certain.
Yeah, Call of Duty is not on Switch. It was on Wii.
Yeah.
I don't think it was on Wii U either.
Yeah. So obviously, like it's pared down a little bit, but you still have like the gun games. You have like Fortnite, you know, which is like the thing that everybody's playing, and that's on Switch, and it's what people are playing. Buying a Nintendo isn't going to protect your kid from like, you know, rated M games. Like it's just not. It's not how it really works. I think that their image as a family-friendly company might help. It definitely might contribute to a lot of sales, like as far as like parents trying to find like, oh, what's the best thing? I don't know video games too much, but I feel like more and more, especially now as people kind of grow up with technology, I feel like more and more people are, and more parents are familiar with video games now than they ever were. And I think they know as well, like, oh, I don't have to get the Switch. Just you could play fucking Crash Bandicoot on anything. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if kids are getting PCs, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Roblox and Minecraft.
Well, they're probably just thinking like, hey, you need this for your school anyway.
Right. Well, that was the point that was being made, by Capcom. And it's interesting because I'm of multiple minds with this. I think the big piece here is we have to remember being kids ourselves. There's some power in the forbidden. If I think back about Genesis versus SNES, which I was alive and well for and remember very well, Genesis's draw was never admitting that it had a lot of kids games, including Sonic. Sonic's a kids game, but they never, or Echo the Dolphin and shit like that, but they never acknowledged it as being that. Instead, it was fast. It was 16-bit. It was colorful. It was loud. And
yeah,
the Sega does what Nintendo era. And I feel like even though Genesis lost ultimately to a much better console, I think there was something solid about that approach. And indeed, other than PlayStation, no one's taken it to Nintendo like that. And why fight them where it's not like Switch itself, where I'm like, I think Nintendo should be fought on this hill. It's like when you're thinking Zelda and Animal Crossing and Mario Kart and Smash Bros., you're not going to compete with any of that. And it's just not going to happen. And I think Sony has some stuff, right? Knack was ostensibly for kids. Astrobot's ostensibly for kids. Ratchet and Clank is ostensibly for kids. But I really think PlayStation's power for children is that same feeling of growing up and playing the big kid system. And my brother's kid is 10, I think now. Maybe he just turned 11. He's a big Nintendo fan. But the PlayStation's kind of like this forbidden fruit where he realizes like they were playing Uncharted and stuff like that. And it's like, in his mind, he's like, there's a whole world of shit I can't even play yet over here. And setting the seed there, I think, is really nice. So you don't want to bring them in with Astrobot. You know, I'm a big 311 fan, as you guys know, and From Chaos, the album From Chaos, has Amber on it, right? Amber is like 311's most famous song, probably. But that doesn't sound anything like them. And I always think about people like that were listening to adult contemporary like radio and went and bought that record. Like, what did they think when they got hit with that? And it's a similar thing where you don't almost want to misrepresent the brand either. And I thought it was very well said that there are indie games galore for kids. And
no, totally, yeah.
But I also think that like when I was a kid growing up, there was a big delineation. Like when Mortal Kombat came out, that was a pretty big deal because there was just nothing ever really like that. Even when you played Double Dragon or Ninja Gaiden, it didn't feel like you were violent. Everything kind of felt childlike then. Today, I feel like it's the exact opposite, where everything kind of feels like a bridge above the adult and you're kind of reaching. And Fortnite is violent, right? It's childlike, but it's a violent game. So I don't know. I think this is a complicated question. I appreciate the question though, Michael. We'll consider it again in the future. Corey Christensen wrote in and said, there have been rumors that Facebook wants to sell its Oculus holdings to focus more on their core business. Sony would naturally be one of the interested parties. Is this an acquisition that makes sense in your book? Yes. And this is a deal that Sony should make. And the reason is that Oculus has great technology. They have great minds, great tech minds, and they've purchased some studios that I think, and we said, I think last week, Ready at Dawn is one of those teams where I'm like, this might have been a team that got away, not because of the reasons you think. We don't want, well, maybe some people want the Order 1887, but they're a VR team now, and it would be interesting to have had them. So yeah, Chris, what do you think about Facebook shopping Oculus and the possibility of Sony picking it up?
That would certainly be interesting. I wonder how that would work, though, because obviously PSVR exists and
Right.
Oculus exists. And I don't know if they'd be able to really fold those into the same thing because those are two brands that have a lot of value independently.
Yes, true enough.
You wouldn't really want to get rid of that. You wouldn't want to be like, oh, Oculus no longer exists because it's PS Now. And it's like, or not PS Now, PSVR. And it's like, oh, that's not great. But then how could they coexist? It would be a bit redundant. There's definitely no doubt a lot of good talent, no doubt a lot of good expertise that could, that could contribute to the Sony ecosystem in a very positive way. But I don't know. To me, I look at the PSVR 2 and like the rumors or like the schematics of it, and I almost wonder like if they even need Oculus, because what they're doing seems pretty, in my opinion, almost to where Valve is, like where the Index controllers are, like the way that they've described the PSVR 2's controllers and the sensor system and how it's supposed to work. It seems like they've almost got a bit of a better handle on it than Sony does, or a little bit of a better handle on it than Oculus does. Obviously, Oculus is good with wireless stuff, and that's something that they're probably going to have to figure out as they move forward. But I feel like it would be a redundant purchase.
Yeah, I think
I don't know if they need Oculus. I don't know if Oculus is better served elsewhere. I don't know. I would feel weird to see them buy them, though.
I think you make an interesting point, a very compelling point, that there's a lot of redundancy there. The way I see it is, it's something that happens in other industries, not so much in the gaming industry, but like when GM, for instance, in the 90s famously bought like a lithium battery company just to kill it and stuff like that. And that's what I was thinking with this, where Oculus is the biggest problem they have. It's not Valve or Vive and anything going on over there, because VR is going to require ubiquity. And I think Oculus understands that more than anyone. And my mind here, when I was putting this question in, I was like, what if they called it PlayStation Oculus, and leverage that brand? I think you're right. I think it's redundant. I think it's going to cost a lot of money. I think what I would be most interested in this possible acquisition, because yeah, you're right. It's a bridge too far. I think I'm wrong there. But like getting some of the talent on board, I think would be really great. It just seems like they even made a proprietary API for Oculus. I don't think they're using it anymore, but there's a lot of potential for some backend tools too that might make it easier to integrate in a wider way, which I think is going to be really vital to PSVR 2. But Dustin, what do you think about Oculus and Sony's possibility in being interested in them?
I have to bring some question to Corey's write-in as a whole, just because I haven't heard anything about Facebook wanting to sell its Oculus holdings at all.
I haven't heard that either. I just assumed that it was true. I don't
Yeah.
pay attention to that shit. So,
And so I've been searching around trying to find out anything, and I can't find any rumors. And it's not me. Like, I'd love for Corey to either send me a tweet or something, because I'm very curious about this rumor. Like in March 11th, Upload VR put up an article that said nearly 20% of Facebook employees are working on VR and AR right now. So, and that's one of the things about Facebook is the double-edged sword of VR and Oculus in general, in that they're the reasons why they're one of the only companies that are able to dump this much money into something that isn't making them any money back. But it's one of the number one things, actually, it's the number one thing that people hate about Oculus, is that they've tried to pull a bunch of shit with, like, you need a Facebook account in order to use the Oculus Quest and a bunch of weird stuff like that. So, but let's just say then, still hypothetically, I think Chris is right in that I just don't know how these two products would integrate. Like, there's a lot of value, especially right now. The Quest 2 is clearly a very successful product, as far as how people feel about it. I don't know about the sales numbers and stuff like that. I know that it was way more successful than the Rift and the original Quest, but I don't really know how they would combine those ecosystems together. So interesting thought idea, though.
Matthew O'Sullivan wrote in, and says, with Squid Game being the latest South Korean piece of pop culture to blow up globally, do you think we will ever see a similar phenomenon amongst gaming? South Korean film, television, and music has all stormed its way into Western entertainment, and personally, I find the stories their artists have to tell to be quite thought-provoking. Are there any Korean studios you know of that might have a potential to make their way to the front page of the PSN store? I feel like it would be a wonderful addition of diversity to the experiences available to gamers in the West. The problem with this question, Matthew, is that, yeah, there are many South Korean developers. I mean, Smilegate, NCSoft, Nexon. I mean, there's a lot. But the problem with the South Korean market is that it's just not open to the West. So, like, they're working in reverse. Remember, Smilegate's working with Remedy to get games out in the West, et cetera, and so on. So I feel like that is first of all, South Korea is a small country, very homogenous, and very focused because of that homogeneity, right? And that happens in a lot of countries. Australia is another homogenous country, not racially or anything like that, but there's only 25 million people there. You can only be so different from each other, right? And the reason I say that is because I feel like there is some sort of, let me back up and say, we forget that we've already done this to everyone else, right? Like, America has done this to everyone. And like, imagine something like Squid Game, but every day. That's what it's like to live in a world dominated by American culture, right? And so I'm hopeful that Korean studios can rise up and show us something. We're seeing a lot of Chinese studios doing it, which I think is awesome. And that's the big separation between the CCP for us and China and Chinese people. So I don't know that the studio you're going to hear about is going to be one of those teams, because the teams I named, like NCSoft, Nexon, they make big, very South Korean centric games for the most part. But someone will sneak in and surprise you, I think. And my hope is that it happens sooner rather than later. But I think Smilegate is the big company that we should all be keeping an eye out on in the console space. Dustin, do you have anything to add?
A really important factor to consider is in PlayStation's recent PlayStation Presents, the second game that they showed off was from a Korean developer, Project Eve.
Right, that's right.
And the developer Shift Up Corporation.
Indeed, I forgot about that. Very well done.
Korean.
Well
so, yeah. And also stuff like Black Desert Online. That's another Korean developer. They have they just did that other game, the PS Plus game, the Battle Royale one. That I think that's the same dev.
Oh,
Either
Hunter's
way,
Arena?
Hunter's Arena is also Korean dev. I don't know if it's the same as Black Desert, but
Oh, right. Black
not,
Desert. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, not that the Hunter's Arena game, not so great. But again, another Korean developer. So we're seeing this happen already to a small extent. So, but dude, have either one of you checked out Squid Game at all?
No, my brother-in-law told me it's awesome. I just haven't had him. I mean, I'm so busy.
Yeah, no, I have not,
Dude,
checked it out yet.
it's clearly, at least to me, it's very clearly Danganronpa inspired, like very much so. It has the same like. It's weird. It's got like bright colors mixed along with like a very dark tone. All the people are gathered in an auditorium at the beginning. I'm like, come on, like we get it.
This last one I want to throw to you, if I might, Chris, and Dustin, you can sound off on it as well if you'd like. But Sweet Chuck wrote in and said, "Hey, Lord Grantham, Mr. Bates, and Matthew Crawley. Now the question is, who's who?" This is, of course, a Downton Abbey reference. Just watched the fantastic live show. Props to Dagan for the way he delivered his game choice. And I got to say, he got completely shafted by the audience. I agree. I thought Dagan's presentation was the most clever. Also, that's an easy win for Street Fighter 2. People, listen to Knockback. I agree. Should Sony be making friends with Steam and Valve? When PSVR 2 is unveiled, a lot of people would love to see Half-Life Alyx at the showcase. Having PSVR 2 compatible with Steam day one, I think, would be even more appealing. With all these PC ports coming out, wouldn't it be great to link your PlayStation account to your Steam account, so you can earn trophies on your PlayStation Studios PC games? Take care, lads. That last sentence is something. Now, I know that that doesn't matter to a lot of people. It's similar to what I was saying about mobile trophies and why it's so important and why I want to talk to the guys, although I haven't heard back from them. I'm just reminded. I'm going to make a little note for myself. Talk to them about Wipeout Rush. The reason that I'm curious about that integration is because it can signal a greater level of integration. Microsoft has done this already. So I want to see something where Sony is working nicely with others. Remember, I had that, what I consider a really brilliant idea for one of the companies to do to the other, which is to say, we'll basically we'll funnel your trophies or your achievements and give you the equivalent on our console, like stuff like that, which I think would be brilliant to do. But I think that, and Chris, I don't know if you agree, but Valve has so much power. The company, they're a very small L libertarian company, but any company that can ally themselves with them in a really intimate way is going to win in a major way.
No, for sure.
So yeah, what do you think about Sweet Chuck's thoughts here?
No, I think this is smart. Well, first of all, I think this already kind of exists in the Xbox ecosystem. I know from launching games on Steam that are Xbox Game Studios. Whenever I pop them onto the Xbox, the achievements will pop up that I got on Steam. So like I know that trophy sync situation is already a thing in at least one ecosystem. So it would make sense to at least follow that through with PlayStation Studios. I think the VR thing is extra compelling because obviously PC is really the only place where other VR titles exist. Xbox doesn't have a VR vertical. Switch doesn't have a VR vertical. It's exclusively PlayStation and PC. So if you can ally those things together, like that's like a no-brainer to me. I agree like heavily with this situation.
Dustin, what do you think? That would be kind of like a coup de grace in some way to get to involve yourself with a company like that.
Yeah. I think it would be really smart. The only conflict, of course, is that they have already kind of saddled up next to Epic, which has their own store.
Actually, that's a great point. They own a piece of Epic. So that might actually be a small piece of Epic. I'm sure they would be happy to divest from Epic if they got some deal with Steam, but that would be necessary. You're right.
The one thing I do want to add, just because I think it's a compelling thing to think about, is that Chuck here mentions PSVR 2. Having Half-Life Alyx on PS5, that would be cool. I think that having PSVR being compatible with Steam day one is essential. They allow it to work, whether it's Steam or whatever. I think it is so important that the new PSVR is compatible with PCs. Like, I feel like it'll be so bad if they don't. Now that people can buy an Oculus Quest that not only plays games on its own, but also can be used as a PC VR headset, man, that's going to be so incredibly important. We'll see what Sony does, though.
Indeed. Exciting times coming up. Lots of games to play.
Yeah.
Lots of unknown moments, collaborations, announcements, etc. But that's the end for our episode of Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast this week, our labored and lengthy episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Chris, any closing comments?
No, I'm actually super late to a thing that I forgot that I was supposed to do.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, no.
All right, well, we'll let you go, Dustin.
So, like, whoops.
Dustin, do you have any closing comments?
Sora is in Smash, and I've been drinking so much water the past few days because of all the sodium, all the salt I'm taking in. Keep it coming. Sora in Smash.
So don't stand down.
I'm very pleased.
Stand by.
Do not stand down, Kingdom Hearts fans. This is our time.
Yeah, I was shocked at that when I saw that. I was like, oh my God. They did the only thing worse than putting another guy with a sword in, like another guy with a guy with a keyblade. Oh my God.
Let me just take a little drink here.
Poor Waluigi. He got fucking shafted.
Delicious.
Huh? All right.
God help us.
All right, boys. Well, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate all of you out there for your love, kindness, and support of Sacred Symbols, Last Stand Media, everything we do. Remember, patreon.com/laststandmedia, laststandmedia.shop. Support us on YouTube. Listen to us on podcast services. Follow us on social media. That's it. Be good to yourselves. We'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.